Hello and welcome to the second round of the Reykjavik Open. Good morning for those that are living in this part of the hemisphere. It's the dreaded double round day.
Yes.
So we're starting early today.
Yes, I went in and had breakfast at the tournament hotel, and funnily enough, at 7 a.m. Only one chess player was there.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, it was the second seed, Dmitry Andrikhin, coming in very early. And most chess players are not necessarily known as morning people, but Dmitry Andrikhin was there 7 a.m. having a very healthy breakfast and a couple of cups of coffee before going back to his room to continue his preparation.
Seems somewhat wholesome, if you will.
So we're now just going to look at some of the pairings. Most of the top players in round two are playing players just below the 2300 mark, so it's quite a tough morning pairing for some of these people. And we seem to have still quite a few of your countrymen up there on the list, or maybe I will let you read off the list.
Well, not too many, but on board one from Denmark, Nikolaj Skousen against Shach Mamadjerov, the number one seed. Then we have Andrikhin, which you just met this morning, against FIDE-master Viana, who's from Brazil. Then we have FIDE-master Pogan from Germany against Richard Rapport, the third seed. Gabriel Sargsyan is playing local player Halldór Grétar Einarsson. Anna-Maja Kasarian, FIDE-master against Ivan Sheparinov. Frank Mikumian against local Dagur Ragnarsson. Then we have a Norwegian on board 7, Petter Haugli. He's playing against Sergei Movsesian. We tend to have a lot of Norwegians here.
Of course.
Then a Swedish player, Jan Olof Lind, against Gwyn Jones, our friend. Abhijit Gupta, who joined us here yesterday after an early win. He's playing a Lithuanian FIDE-master, Povilas Rasinkas. And then Simen Adelsstein is playing his fellow countryman. Yeah. No, actually, I thought it was... There's actually another guy called Edvardsson, who is Norwegian in this tournament, but this is an Icelandic player, Kristján Edvardsson, who shares.
One pairing that is of note to me is on board 5, Anna-Maja Kasarian, who is, I believe, 15 years old, already a FIDE master, and from the Netherlands, a young lady who is the rising star of Dutch chess. So she
perhaps we should start with an apology to the better half of the world, the ladies.
Yes. Well, in some ways, it was not entirely our fault, Ingvar, because none of the ladies started off on the top 25 boards yesterday. But as the tournament goes on, many of the top lady players who are playing in the tournament, I'm sure, will rise to the challenge. Yeah. As we can see on our screens, in the beautiful convention hall that we're playing in, we have Anna Majda playing there with the white pieces against the Bulgarian Grandmaster Ivan Sheparinov.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention the apology because yesterday was International Women's Day, which we didn't mention here, but sorry ladies. Yeah, Anna-Maja against Sheparinov, interesting matchup. Should we perhaps go to board 1?
Why not?
Have a look at the games?
Yes. So, on board 1, we have Nikolaj Skousen playing Shach Mamadjerov, and as yesterday, we can see that the top seed has chosen a slightly unusual opening, and if we just play for a few moves, we'll be able to see that it actually became famous because of the game Vladimir Kramnik versus Laurent Fressinet, where the Frenchman scored a decisive victory over Kramnik with the black pieces, choosing a very aggressive system.
Interesting line. You have the queen d7, developing the queen set pieces, and getting ready to castle on the queen side.
Yes.
And just attack white on the king side with typical pushes like h5, h4.
No, a very blunt attacking idea. And the fact that Fressinet used it to defeat Kramnik made it a little bit special and gave prominence to this line. So and I believe we're still following the game Kramnik-Fressinet.
Yeah, c3. And e5.
Okay, so I believe e5 was the novelty that Freycinet played. More standard in this position is just a castle queenside,
Yeah.
or f6 to prepare e5. But very natural developing moves by black to continue. But e5 was actually the famous novelty that he used to play. So we're still following this. As far as I know, Mamedov has not played this position before as black, but I will have to check in the database. It is still a very unusual system, of course, to have this exact position beforehand. We can see the two players on our screen now. Mamedov looks very confident. And I believe that e5 has never been played again after that one Freycinet game against Kravnik. So this is very interesting. This is only the second time that e5 has been played. I believe that the actual sequence of moves in the Kravnik-Freycinet game went d takes e5.
As happened here.
As happened here. Castles queenside.
Aha.
So it's different, yes.
Yeah.
And here Kravnik played e3. And after knight g e7, he played the slightly dubious g4, which gave black a target. And after bishop g6, b4, h5, you can see that black was already getting straight into hand-to-hand combat against the former world champion from Russia. So we can say that f6 is almost certainly a novelty, although it is possible it could transpose to one of these f6, e5 lines later on. So we'll have to wait a couple of moves. But you can see that black is trying to gain the initiative very early on. And white, in this position, he played, as we call it, a morning round opening, where he just wanted to play d4, knight f3, fianchetto his kingside position, get a solid position versus the famously aggressive Mamedov. And Mamedov has had none of this, and he's tried to somehow begin the game with an attacking position from the black pieces, which is very hard to do usually against somebody who's willing to play with black in the morning.
Yeah, so he played bishop d6. And yeah, we should mention that white has to spend some time here. I mean, he can't castle, which he would like to do, of course, because the pawn on h3 would simply be hanging.
Yes.
So that's the downside of h3.
We should also note that at least Mamedov spent some time. Yesterday, he basically finished the game with the same amount of time as he started, relying on his 30-second increments to get a very technical position, and he just continued to play the natural moves and won easily. Where today, he's already had to spend a bit of time in a position that I believe he's never had before. So we can see it's a very aggressive position for black. And as you said, it's not so easy for white to play a normal move like castles kingside. And he has to solve this problem, where the next few moves, at least, are obvious for black. He wishes to castle queenside. He wishes to put a rook on the e file and start threatening some sort of opening of the center with d4. So you can see that Mamedov is still, I think he's gotten the type of position he wanted out of the opening. It's not quite clear that he prepared this because Nikolai Skousen, I had a quick look at his games, and he plays e4 and d4, and he's quite a solid player. So it wouldn't have been so easy for Mamedov to prepare such a line. I think this is just he's playing his style, as it were. I think we might as well leave them to contemplate this position and move on to the other higher boards.
I like Shaq's position. I think it suits him well.
Yes, and probably quite easy to play for the next few moves as well.
Yeah. So should we go in order, or should we?
Whatever you like.
Let's check out Rapport first.
Yes. I believe he's playing a young German player, Nicholas Pogan. I have to check this. When I say young, I think he's 24, so maybe he's young just to us.
Relatively young. So Rapport has the black pieces, and as usual, he's playing.
He's playing an aggressive, original idea. He's playing. Okay, so he's trying to transpose to a normal Dutch position.
So knight f6, bishop d2. Doesn't control e5, so he plays e5.
Very often in these positions, white would leave the pawn on d3 to control the e4 square and to transpose into a normal English position. But in fact, Pogan has played the principal move to attack
e4.
immediately in the center. And now Rapport has played
grabbing the space with e4,
yes.
knight c3, bishop b4. And I think we had to move queen b3.
Yes, I think if you allow the doubling of pawns a little bit on c3, you could say that Black is trying to get like a dream Nimzo-Indian position where he can somehow blockade the double c pawns, and he's already got a pawn in e4.
Yeah.
But okay, there many times you can play bishop d2, queen b3, queen c2, so all these moves are very natural. a5 is must be a respectable move to protect the bishop on b4.
Yeah, I have to give a shout out to my friend Simon Williams, who loves to play the Dutch, and well, both him and Robert, Richard, quite aggressive players. So not surprising that they like to play this opening.
Yes, yes. I believe the last time I was here playing in this tournament, which was many years ago in 2006, I saw Simon play his pet Dutch system with d6 and e6, and he managed to beat, and I hope I'm getting the correct play here, because if not, I'll be in trouble, but I believe he defeated Ivan Sokolov with the black pieces.
Yes, he did.
And in a very, thematic game, so he was very happy with this. And this was 2006, as he was very much, a believer in his own system, and he was willing to play it, which was quite admirable.
Yeah, that game is in his book, The Killer Dutch. As is his win against me in the Dutch from the Reykjavik Open, probably 2006-07 also. So.
So he's done well with the Dutch in Iceland, I suppose.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we should also mention that he beat Boris Gelfand in 2012, after Boris Gelfand played his match against Anand. So with the black pieces, which is not
so easy to play such a famous strategical player such as Boris. Okay, so something like bishop d2
has been played.
I think that white, like most players who are playing such a aggressive, creative player, such as Rapport or Mamedarov, they want to keep some sort of control of the position, and they want to basically try to have a safe opening, as it were. And all of these people would like to play e3, knight g2 in this position, and hopefully just get a normal middle game position. We've been, advised by producers that, do you consider the Dutch a good opening to play like this in many ways? And I have to actually think that sometimes when you play the Dutch, you sometimes end up in slightly ugly or unusual looking positions. And it's something that you really need to have a good feeling for, and you need to accept that sometimes you end up in slightly unusual positions. You can see that in the position we have here, Black has played already 1, 2, 3, 4 pawn moves in the opening, and he hasn't really developed many pieces. But he's trying to get some sort of strangle in the center, in this typical Dutch structure. You could almost call it more like an English, to be honest, more than a normal Dutch, since somehow the pawn from that's normally sitting on e6 or e7 has managed to get all the way to e4. I still think someone like a Rapport would still be quite happy in this sort of position, which is an original type position where white has to find concrete answers to the problems given to him here.
Just played knight c6, as we saw on the screen. And, well, although it looks slightly unusual in f5 and a5, he has developed the kingside pieces, so he's ready to castle.
And of course, there's the one very concrete problem of white having to protect d4. And after the natural and obvious e3, then we're ready. I think he doesn't have to actually do anything special. I did manage to have a small look at a4 immediately, which is a very typical idea that Rapport would try to play, but I don't think it leads to anything because after captures, bishop takes d2, king takes d2, I don't think there's anything terrible there.
No, it doesn't look like it.
The king is quite safe in the center, as it were.
Yeah, but often a4
is an idea to
tricky,
deflect the knight away. Because normally the knight does not want to really go to c6. Usually there's a c6, d5 structure, or sometimes the black pawn will like to go to c5. But here, Rapport has developed the knight with concrete ideas to play in this position.
Okay, let's
move on.
Move on to other games. From one Dutch to another.
Mm-hmm.
We've been told that we have another Dutch in Melkumian's game.
Mm-hmm. So Hrant Melkunian is a very strong Armenian player who is 26 years of age.
And he's playing against Icelandic Dagur Ragnarsson, who is a FIDE master.
Mm-hmm.
He was sort of a recipient of a good rating spike with the new K factor of 40. So he went rapidly over 2300.
And
went down again and is starting to establish himself again.
In what age bracket do we put him in?
He should be around 17, 18. Can't remember. So yeah, Hrant Melkumian plays one of these popular anti-Dutch lines with knight c3.
Yes. So one of the standard ideas here, of course, is to try to get e4 in quickly, and if knight f6.
Yeah, one of the more popular
moves. One of the popular moves, then bishop g5 will happen.
And usually black accepts.
Black plays d5, bishop takes f6, must be e takes, e3. And here we try have this position where you try to play against the doubled f pawns with queen f3 and bishop d3.
Yeah, white has these ideas of putting pressure on these weak pawns.
I was once told that in this position, white was slightly better because the odd piece for black, the knight on b8, wished to go to e4. So I will show you the...
That's going to take a long time.
A long time. So basically I must make sure that this is here.
It often goes actually...
Yes.
Goes to c6, e7.
I was about to show exactly this. That I was told this maybe years ago
Black to move.
That you would get this structure, which is a very normal type structure. And in theory, white was a little bit better because the knight on b8 wants to go to e4. And then I was also told, if we concentrate on the pawn on f6, that if you compare it with a Trompowsky position, like this, that this position, the best structure for black, is in fact to play something like f5. And if you get something like this, that this sort of position is considered equal because the knight on b8 will immediately travel to e4. But with the same position in the Dutch,
the f6 square is occupied.
The f6 square is occupied.
Yeah.
So for 10 years, I told everybody that this position was the position coming from the Dutch was better for white. And then a very strong Dutch grandmaster, Friso Nijboer, very quickly showed me the error of my ways. And he said exactly the plan that you mentioned, that in this position, the correct way to play is not to play the natural-looking c6, but to play knight c6, with the idea that after queen f3,
bishop e6,
bishop e6, bishop d3, queen d7, the idea is for the knight on c6 to end up going to e4 via e7, c8, and d6, and to reach the e4 square with, yet again, equality. And if you look in the databases, this is now the standard way to play this position to get equality.
Yeah, I'll play this position for black. But he went another way, actually.
Yes, he played
G6.
G6
On the second move.
This, in theory, sort of gives white what he wants. Yeah, he gets in e4 for free without having to give up the bishop pair. And
so black plays d5.
Yes, a very committal move, I must admit.
I've seen knight c5, I think, also, but no, maybe not in this position. Knight h6.
Knight h6. So we've been told that knight h6 is a novelty. that the more natural bishop g7 has been played. So I must admit, I'm a little bit unsure of why he wants to play bishop f5 or knight f5, I assume.
Yeah, it must be.
Because the knight doesn't belong on f7. But white has very natural places to put his pieces. He can obviously try to take advantage of the weakened e5 square, which no pawn is able to defend from the black point of view. So as we can see on the screen, the young Armenian Grandmaster is on the right-hand side, Helmut Hrant Melkunian, playing Dagnar Ragnarsson. And he looks reasonably satisfied with his position, even though he's never seen it before. And we can see a move being played, which we believe to be bishop d7. Which we'll see. Oh, we've had a few more moves, so we can have a look. So we played knight c6 to protect the e5 square. Castles, bishop d7.
Yeah, so black wants to castle queenside.
Yes, in the spirit of being adventurous. And, well, if he castles queenside and tries to play something like bishop g7 and e5, he would probably be able to get rid of this weakness. But this is quite a lot of moves, and white can play very natural rook e1, queen e2 to make sure this does not happen. And at least he has a very target on e7 or e to attack in the long run, shall we say.
Yeah, if black can play e5, then...
And if black plays e5, then
solves his problems.
He solved those problems, but it's not so obvious. Okay. We shall leave them for the moment.
Yeah, maybe you should have a look at board 2. Dmitry Andreikin.
Our second seed from Russia, who is playing the white pieces versus Dirso Viana.
Yeah, from Brazil.
From Brazil. So you can see that it's a very international tournament here. We've had quite a lot of nationalities on the top 4 boards already.
There we see them.
There you see them. So we can see that the young Russian champion on the right-hand side, Dmitry Andreikin, with the white pieces, playing the Brazilian player. And if we look at the opening moves...
Another knight f3.
A lot of people...
That's a morning move.
Morning move, definitely. Yes. But to be honest, they're playing the high-rated player, and they all want a nice, solid position. And to be honest, none of them have actually achieved it yet.
d5.
Okay, it seems as though he's playing a very classical way, shall we say?
Yeah, so it just... I think we're reaching a terrace here.
Yes.
d4.
d4. A very standard terrace where the long-term plan of white is to somehow one day, in many, many moves in the future, try to attack the d5 pawn. Bishop g4 is a little unusual.
Yes.
Normally, black just plays...
Just knight f6.
Knight f6.
Bishop e7. Castle.
And you get something, the typical normal moves where both players play... And this position has been reached thousands of times in the database. Very standard plan. We were talking about yesterday that black has the isolated pawn, but at least he's got natural squares for his pieces to come out. He has easy development, but he has given himself the isolated pawn to hang on to. So, yeah. So bishop g4 is a little unusual, I must admit.
Yes. And
we can see that Andreikin had actually spent a little bit of time here, because it is a slightly unusual move, because a bit like these reverse Grunfeld positions, the bishop on g4 is threatening to take away the defender of the d4 pawn.
Yeah, so if castles...
So
well, actually, let's see, castle.
And
one idea is to take on f3, but yeah, that works probably. Just take on f3 and then take on d4 with the knight.
With the knight, yes. And...
so that's the immediate threat, but knight c3, actually, which he played, takes care of that.
Yes.
Just go one back.
And now there's sort of a counter threat on d5.
Yeah, so if he takes on f3 now, then white will simply take on f3 and then take on d5.
Yes. And we have, for example, something like this, which in many ways is not what black wants, because there's already problems with the threat of e3, and there'll be, well, bishop takes b7 is on, but also queen a4 I think will hurt as well.
Yeah, he's just well behind in development because he spent 2 moves on the bishop, capturing a knight, 2 moves on the knight.
And he's given up the bishop there.
Exactly.
So we do not believe that the Brazilian player will take an f3. But bishop g4 is very early in this position. It's very rare, because normally it ends up on e6.
Yes.
So I do not believe that it was such a well-prepared line, since he's thinking about it, and white has just played the natural moves. And you would say that in this position, knight f6 would be the standard way for black to continue his development.
Yeah, seems like it.
Okay.
Maybe we should move on to board number 4, where we have Gabriel Sargsson now with the white pieces against Halldór Grétar Einarsson.
We can see Sargsson already in deep thought, as it were, on the right-hand side on your screen. You can see the tournament hall behind them, the Harper Center, with overlooking, I believe, the North Atlantic Ocean.
And his customary espresso, I think.
Ah, yes.
At the European Team Championship, Iceland actually played the Armenian team in the first round. And we played them, and their captain came to me and said, can we have espresso? And we didn't have espresso in the tournament hall, and they almost couldn't make it. No, we have to have espresso. So we had to organize an espresso machine for them immediately, so they could get their espresso.
But to be honest, if you go to a top-level chess tournament and there's not coffee in the tournament hall...
there was coffee, but they wanted espresso.
Yes. And if we noticed his on that screen that was being shown, his opponent was drinking Icelandic water too. Of course, you see. So he believes that in a good, healthy spring water in the morning is the ticket.
Hey, Halldór Grétar, he actually shares a birthday with me. He's been studying a lot recently, actually. He had some good results in the Icelandic League, beating strong IM, Jón Viktor Gunnarsson, who is around 24, 30, 40. It seems like he's playing quite fast with the black pieces, so he's...
I believe since you've mentioned birthdays, I believe it's Robert James's Fischer.
Today, it's the 9th, yes. You're absolutely correct.
And if my calculations while I was having my own coffee this morning is that he would have been 73 years if he was still alive. I have to double check this, but he was born in 43?
Yeah.
So I have to, again, with morning rounds, I don't wager anything on simple mathematics in my head, but I believe that a very famous day in world chess, that the day that Robert James Fischer was born.
Yes.
So.
Absolutely right.
If
we had, a fianchetto King's Indian. Very solid way for white to play. D6. Yeah, and actually your friend Sue actually shares a birthday with me as well. The Queen's wife. And Bent Larsen.
A very famous Scandinavian player who was a part of the world's elite for many years.
He was an excellent player. Maybe he played a little bit in the spirit of Richard Rapport, or well, vice versa.
Well, there was the famous quote that he preferred to take enormous risks, and one of the Soviet players asked him, "Why do you play like this?" And he says, "Well, if I play 3 games and I win 2 and lose 1, I am better off than 3 draws."
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, this is a very, very standard idea for black here, and one of the plans is to swing the queen across to. I'll try that again.
With the illegal move.
With the illegal move, and I can't get rid of it. How about we go to here? No. To there, yes, much better.
Much better.
But the normal move here for white is actually h3 to stop this. Yeah,
I like these long queen maneuvers.
Yes,
when
of
you
course.
go this way and then that way.
And now queen h5 is no good because I can play g4 here.
Yeah, exactly.
And the typical sacrifice on g4 does not work.
No.
And
I've seen, I think, Maxime Vasil-Lagrave. He played one game where he sacrificed on g4. Probably not this exact position, but it was quite interesting.
No, I mean the typical plan here for black after h3 is to play bishop e6. And now the most aggressive way to play for white in this position is to play d5, pawn takes, knight d4.
Yeah.
And in this position, the players for many years used to retreat the bishop, but it was discovered that here that black could actually take on c4.
Yeah, I've seen some.
Knight takes e6, pawn takes, bishop takes b7, knight d7, bishop takes rook. And even though you've lost the exchange, you've got a preponderance of pawns in the center, and black is supposed to be okay in this position.
Excellent central control of the pawns.
So this is a very standard idea for black, and I believe that now in this position, after h3, bishop e6, it is now considered better to play a move such as queen d3 to not allow this exchange sacrifice. And here, queen a6 attacking the c4 pawn is considered the normal move. And after a move like b3, there are ideas like d5 to keep putting pressure on the c4 pawn. So again, this is very normal. But Sargsyan did not want to play like this because he didn't want to sort of go in with black's plans, and he played the very straightforward. If we go back to the game, he played the very standard e4. And now this is very interesting to me because I would have thought that the idea that I would like to play is to play queen h5.
Yeah.
Now that I have some hope of playing bishop h3 in one move, and this would be, okay, in the Grand Prix attack, we all dream of playing bishop g4, followed by knight g4, and some sort of idea where we play e5 and manage to dislodge the knight on f3. Obviously...
Typical Simon Williams checkmate attack.
But in this position, the black player played bishop g4, which is a far more solid way of playing it.
Yeah, typically black wants to exchange the knight on f3 and play e5 because the knight is controlling the central squares on e5 and d4. So he's trying to play on the black squares. And that's what happened. h3 takes on f3, e5. But yeah, I think it's probably not good for white to take on e5, so he played d5, trying to keep it closed. As black would otherwise control the black squares in the center. C takes d5. And this has all been played rather fast, it seems.
So you would assume this position is known to both players?
Yeah. Bishop e3 and rook fc8. And actually we have a move, rook to c1 was played.
So you can see that white is trying to play the standard pattern here of attacking on the side of the board where he has more space. And basically because the center is fixed with the black squared pawns on dark squares, that this bishop on g7, which very often the King's Union is incredibly strong, but here it's hitting its own pawns. And therefore, if white manages to make the queen side the main area of play where he has more space, and he'll have more pieces attacking that in many of these, shall we say, quiet middle games, the bishop on g7 becomes a passenger.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for this bishop on g7 to become active because it cannot come to h6, and basically it can go to f8 and defend the d pawn. But unless black does something a little bit dramatic, this can turn out to be the typical bad King's Union middle game where the bishop on g7 becomes almost as I said, a spectator. Yeah? And you can see here that if white, even if he, I think it's possible, even if white played an idea of queen a4 to swap off queens, or queen b5, he played queen e2, queen b5, in this sort of structure, if we can play it. What's a normal move for black here? If we actually saw it, something like, it's not so obvious what to play here. If we played a6 just as a waiting move,
B5
to stop because knight b5 is an idea.
Yeah.
Yes. As long as I don't actually blunder anything, and if you have something like this, you can see that here, white still has much more space on the queen side, and the bishop on g7 is just a passenger. Not that I'm saying queen a4 is the best move, but when you get to this sort of position, you can see that it's much easier to be white than it is to be black, because the bishop on g7 is just sitting there. And again, it's a position that Sargsyan would have studied for many hours. Not even this exact position, but this exact pawn structure, where you have the pawn on d5 giving you the space advantage on the queen side, and the bishop on g7 is actually not participating. It's not active. So I will consider this position to have a slight edge for.
Yeah.
For
Also, the white square bishop will have some role on the queen side.
it can easily come to e2 later, and as long as the e4 pawn is protected.
Yeah, Robert Riz is liking this position for white. No risk and ideal position for a morning round game.
Yes, no,
I have to agree.
We all any morning round that it's easy to play for white, or for yourself, I should say, and you don't have any concrete calculation before, shall we say, 11:30 a.m. is always a nice thing to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll go to another game. What would you like to choose?
Let's go to maybe board 7, Movsesian with the black pieces. Tends to play interesting chess.
Shall we have a look from the beginning, since it's still quite early on? So we see the English Open played by Peter Haugli.
We actually, speaking of morning rounds, we had a few people take a bye, including 2 Icelandic Grandmasters and 1 International Master. Grandmaster Kristjánsson and International Master Kjartansson.
So they have some local knowledge of what it's like to play, because obviously the Icelandic players have played here many times.
Yeah, I think it's become customary for Stefansson to take a bye in the morning round. We always have these double rounds here on the second day.
Their chess players are notoriously nighttime people, and many of them spend hours analysing into the late evening, and many of them are not seen before, shall we say, 11 o'clock.
Yeah,
for a very late breakfast sometimes.
Yeah, I had a hard time showing up here, to be honest. So okay, Movsesian played this Karpov line with bishop c5, and Peter Haugli went with e3. You can go with g3 is also standard, but he went with e3, trying to push forward with d4 immediately. Bishop e2, bishop g4, trying to undermine the d4 pawn. But okay, white didn't mind, he castled. Now if we take on f3, there's going to be...
yes, there'll be something happening with the bishop on f3 will either take on c6 or take on b7.
So the pawn won't actually be hanging.
So black continues his development.
Yeah, knight g7.
And now...
And now d5.
d5, which is again a very natural move, gaining space in the center with tempo. And now, to be honest, the first move that you consider here as black is not knight e5, but perhaps bishop takes f3 first. And with the idea that after bishop takes f3, the knight can either go to e5 or d4.
Yeah.
Usually e5, but d4 is at least possible.
We should mention, of course, that pawn takes c6, we have a number of options. We can take back with a bishop, of course.
Yes.
And black has simply won a pawn.
Yes, and with an excellent position, so not what he desires.
Not an option for white.
And after bishop takes f3, something like knight e5.
Yeah, this actually happened. Followed by queen a4 and c6.
So it was bishop takes f3, knight e5, queen a4 check. Again, bishop e2 would be the move you would play without thinking, keeping your bishop pair and protecting the pawn, although the pawn in theory is not actually en prise because of queen a4 check.
Yeah. In junior chess, you would play king h1, hoping for knight takes c4.
Yes. Is this what you teach your students, you see?
Set up the trick with king h1.
So, queen a4 check. Okay, forcing a minor concession for black because he doesn't really want to play knight back to d7.
No.
He doesn't want to actually play queen d7, really, and just give white a simple position to play with the two bishops. So he tries to, the stronger player tries to keep it complicated with c6. And I believe this is the position we've reached with, as we can see on our screens, Peter Haugli, I hope I'm pronouncing it semi-correctly.
I'm not sure, I think so.
No. He's contemplating his position here.
You have to yodel a bit with your Norwegian. Peter Haugli.
I think I will leave that to you before midday. Maybe I'll leave that to you all day. Well, to be fair, I think white has got... I think he's been one of the only players we've seen this morning who is the low-rated player who's got a safe position with white versus the strong player. Because all the others have had very dynamic openings thrust at them with duchess and very unusual queen pawn openings. Okay,
yeah, white should probably just play a solid move.
Well, I mean, at the moment, the threat of knight takes f3 check, taking the bishop and damaging the white pawn structures on. So, as I said, the natural move would be bishop e2, and then black would normally continue his development in castles. Yeah, but he still wishes to complement because he could still play d takes e6 if he wished, but bishop e2 would consider the natural move. Shall we visit another game to see if there's anything exciting happening on the slightly
What
boards?
about our mutual friend and your tennis buddy?
Ah, yes.
Gwen Jones.
Gwen Jones.
The black pieces.
So, Grandmaster Gwen Jones from England. And he's...
I'm actually interested to look at this game. I had a similar game in the Icelandic League where I failed to actually win against a young kid rated 22-30. So.
And you were black. Yes.
Yeah, it was very similar.
Okay, shall we play through the opening?
Yeah.
And maybe you could
e4,
talk us
c5.
through it.
This is exactly what happened. d3, g6, d3.
So the Kinzinning attack for white, basically.
Yeah. So in my game I played d6, but Gwen played e5 immediately.
Again, Gwen is a very aggressive player, so he's trying to be greedy. He wants to try to get as much as he can from the opening.
So he's just playing the bottleneck system with colors reversed.
Yes.
I actually waited for c3 because I wanted to play a different line against knight c3. But it transposes, castles, knight g7, c3, castles, and now, this a3 move. Which is exactly what happened in my game.
And again, just to try to gain space on the queen side with b4.
Yeah.
We can see in our screens here the tournament hall in all of its glory, as it were, in the magnificent Harper Centre, with the tournament laid out. The stage is a little bit behind the screen, where we watched it before, and you can see on the right-hand side next to the window, all the DGD boards, which are transmitting the moves live alongside, and the Grandmasters can also enjoy the view outside. As long
I
as
like
it's
the kid in the striped shirt, red and white.
Yes.
It's like, where's Waldo?
Yes, and well, we'll see if we can keep spotting him later on, you see.
In your top right-hand corner.
Top right-hand corner at the moment, easy to spot.
So d6, allowing this b4, So, I mean, this is a solid way to play for white.
Yes. No, it's again, in the Kinzinning attack, you normally play for either d4 in the center, or you try to do something with your f pawn if you like to be violent. But b4 is
here, black close the center with e5. So
yes. It's not so
white can do this.
So a6 to...
Yeah, that's what I didn't do. Somehow I didn't like it, but it makes sense to me now that I see it. Because in the game I allowed b5 at some point.
And your knight didn't have an obvious square because of the other knight on e7?
Yeah. Well, actually, at some point I played bishop a6 and he played c4. So I got my knight to d4, but the position was a bit too symmetrical for me to do anything. So knight b2, h6. Now this is a standard move to prepare bishop e6.
Yes,
Don't want a white knight
to go
to
e6
g5.
and no knight g5.
So rook b1 and bishop e6. Now the first question is what happens if white takes on c5? And that's easily answered. Let's just see if white takes on c5. Black recaptures. Of course, the pawn on b7 is hanging, but On the other hand, if we take on b7, the d3 pawn will be hanging, so black is absolutely fine.
Yes, he would be very happy with this because somehow it looks like almost black has a lead in development here, and he would play rook rook fd8 probably and have a fine position.
So that explains why White didn't take on c5. In general, if he takes on c5, his d3 pawn will be quite weak, so he played bishop b2 instead, and b5, grabbing some space on the queen side.
It almost starts to look like a strange
Spanish. That's what I thought.
With a pawn on d3.
When I saw the position,
and the only problem is you think, oh, the bishop on g2 doesn't look quite right here. It should be on c2, yes? And with the bishop on c2, you'd guess it was one of these Spanishes where White's played a very early d3. And you can see that here, to be honest, it seems as though black has quite an easy game. But there's nothing wrong with the white position. He has no obvious targets either. This would still be considered a normal maneuvering type of position where black would like to play maybe some sort of idea with f5, but also the more simple way to play it would be at some stage after a couple of more developing moves, the simple idea of first taking on b4 and then
d5,
then playing the d5, thus being able to achieve everything he can in the center.
Yeah, black seems to have a lot of dynamic trumps like f5, d5 and a5 to think about at some stage of the game.
And Gwen is a very active player. It's interesting that when he was a young man, he was a very dynamic and he played many aggressive systems that were not, considered so normal at high-level chess, but very typical in England, the Grand Prix attack and other things. He's written 2 very excellent books on the Dragon Sicilian. And all of these openings reflect his style, that he likes King's Indians, he likes very active positions. Yeah? So he's very much a player who likes to have activity of pieces over pawn structure, shall we say. Yeah. So this sort of position where he will attacking the center after d5 or f5 suits him.
Yeah, I like his style. You know, the King's Indian and the Dragons back in the day.
Yes.
Well, actually, he wrote a book on the Dragon quite recently. So
2, well, that's a volume set.
And there's Waldo.
Waldo has appeared with us. Yes. At least he's easy to find. I think we can move on, but Gwen will be very happy with the game.
Yeah, he should be happy with his position. So should we go back to some of the top boards?
I think so.
Is there something interesting? Maybe we can have a look at board 14, Hjörvar Steinn. He's, if you go 2 up, with the black pieces, 1 up, yeah, right there. My good friend.
And he's playing Sebastian Moer?
I don't know. Yeah, well, nothing special.
Nothing special? How did this knight get to e3?
Yeah, the knight on e3 is what sticks out.
It looks a bit strange.
It's a normal position, but the knight is on e3 instead of f3.
It looks like it's just somehow been shifted across.
Yeah, let's quickly go through the moves.
Yes.
So yet another knight f3, the token morning move.
No, I'm very happy.
So a3, the Petrosian.
Yes, the Queen's Indian.
Queen's Indian, d5. And he plays it, with g3.
Yes.
Okay.
But normally here, black
takes with the knight.
Takes with the knight, yes. So
this
is slightly different.
This line at some point for white. And queen g2, e4, etc. But okay, a6, bishop d2, bishop d6, and you put the knight on e5. Okay. Okay. Let's have a look at this maneuver. Knight e5, knight bd7, and knight c4. Utilizing the pin on the d5 pawn.
I must admit it looks very pretty to do all this, but does it actually achieve anything?
Well, black has to move the bishop now.
He
can't lose the bishop here, and now knight e3. And there's pressure on d5. Well, maybe black can do some of the same with something like knight f8 and put it on e6 and castle. We have to take care of the d5
pawn. But I like your suggestion of knight f8.
Yeah, I don't like playing c6.
No. We've gone to the trouble of putting the bishop into d7. We dream of playing c5 one day. And I like the idea of playing knight e6 castles and preparing c5 in the long run.
Black seems to be well prepared in that position to play c5. And maybe after c5 the knights look a little funky on c3 and e3.
And your friend would be happy with this type of position? Is his style to to slowly improve his pieces, as it were.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we'll go back and update one of the top boards. That was quite exciting. The young Hungarian former child prodigy, I should say, now that he's a 19-year-old. 19-year-old in the world of chess these days, you know. Oh, quite a lot has happened. Oh, we saw the position around here. And
he played A4.
He played A4. This is the problem. You see, I suggested A4, but I didn't really believe it at the time.
Nonchalantly, A4.
It's a sort of move you would consider, but it doesn't really play. But Richard is maybe, this is one of the reasons he's over 2,700, is that he considered it and decided that he got enough for it. But yet again, I believe that he's the sort of player that wants to somehow take over the initiative, if possible.
So let's see what happened. I mean, white must.
No, it's all basically forced.
Yeah. And then D5.
D5, of course. So okay, so the simple
natural question is, what if C5? Just
closing the position and then taking your time. Well.
Well, maybe there's some knight e5 problems. Yeah, there's knight a5. For black.
Of course, yes.
Queen somewhere.
And then the queen
B4.
has to hang on to the a4 knight, because after knight c4 check, the rook will be attacking.
Well, there's definitely a lot of initiative.
Yes.
And there's even a trap if queen b4. Knight c4 check. You already have to be careful. Well, king d1 is not a natural move, but if you play king d1, there's
yes.
Well, no. Rook takes a4 is
it's
allows check, so we can't do that. Rook takes a4, queen takes a4 check. So So we can't do that.
Well, bishop d7.
Yeah.
And
overlooked the check. But okay, black would get a lot of prey. There's also knight g4 ideas.
No, it's a very typical game of Rapport, where he's trying to take over the initiative earlier in the game.
So I think c5 would be fine for black. White took on d5 when he played knight a5 anyway. And after queen c2, knight takes d5.
Well, you can see that black has certainly got activity, and obviously the white king is stuck on d2 early on. And the d3 square is a little bit weak, so there's sort of an obvious, a natural sort of threat of knight b4, knight d3, trying to basically come in with both knights. Yeah?
Played a3, stopping knight b4, but this, on the other hand, weakens.
But you can imagine if white played a standard idea, developed a piece, I should say, knight b4 would almost finish the game, I think, because the queen would have to hang on to the knight. And then something terrible like this could start happening, and then the next knight would come into d3, and you could not ask for anything more.
No, maybe knight d3 first. Or something.
Yes. But okay, a3 was played.
Yeah, and now bishop e6 has already been played.
Ah, yes, we can see the position on our screens on the camera.
Yeah, highlighting the weakness on b3.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And already black seems to have plenty of compensation for the pawn.
Mm-hmm.
King is stuck in the center, and the black pieces are quite active.
Mm-hmm. No, I think this will have to be one of the games that we keep an eye on, since one of the reasons Richard Rapport is so popular amongst chess fans is that he's always striving for activity and interesting games. I believe, since we saw your countryman, I should be allowed to have a little bit of nationalism going from my side as well, and I wish to bring in the Australian international master Moulton Lai, who's snuck into the top.
Yeah, he's right there in the center.
In the center.
Yeah. Aha.
And young Moulton has 2 Grandmaster norms, so he's hoping to complete the set here in Iceland, which would be very nice. And we'll just flick through the game.
It's a bit easier for me to find countrymen, though.
Yes. No. I mean, in some ways you have to analyze everybody. I only have a couple to worry about.
Exactly.
So this is his beloved Ragusin, which he likes very much. It became very popular due to players like Levin Aronian and other elite players who all play this as an alternative to playing Queen's Indian structures, when white plays 3 knight f3 instead of 3 knight c3, offering a Nimzo Indian. But instead of the normal bishop g5, e3 was played, and now it looks immediately like one of these typical Nimzo Indians. Castles. Okay, so a little bit unusual that in this position, white normally plays something like bishop d3, c5, castles, and we have sort of this very famous structure like this, where again this is the typical Nimzo Indian, where black is striving to play e5, but he delays a3 till later because the bishop in b4 really is not running away so early. So to play a3 on move 6, I think is not necessary. So captures. And now he immediately takes on c4, which I must admit, you'd like to think maybe you wait till the bishop on f1 moved. I think we're very close to the structure.
Maybe he just lost the tempo.
Yes, I was about to say we've gone back to the standard position. Yes. Yeah. And to be fair, this has all been seen before. We've gone back to normal Nimzo Indian waters, and the whole idea of Queen c7 is to play e5 and releasing the bishop on c8. So white played e4, e5.
Yeah, otherwise white plays e5. So looks forced, d5.
d5.
And knight a5.
And to be fair, black usually is quite happy in this sort of structure, because in the Nimzo Indian, he rarely gets all of his pieces out without any problems.
So 98, yeah.
Going to the blockading square on d6.
Standard idea.
And now the first, I would say, hyper-aggressive move of the game, f4. So I think that if black is allowed to have everything his own way, and he puts the knight on d6, and maybe he plays b5, c4, he's getting everything his own way.
Yeah.
The knight on a5 would come back to b7, to c5.
Exactly.
He would get his dream position, as it were. So basically putting the knight on d6, putting this pawn on b5, this pawn on c4, the knight on the edge of the board would head back to b7, c5. And white has decided, no, if I just wait around, the stronger player will get his position that he wants. So he's tried to cause some trouble with f4, immediately attacking the center. And the idea is, after takes, what is white's idea?
Maybe...
Because normally I want to play knight f3 to allow the bishop to recapture, but not so obvious.
So maybe even knight c4.
Knight c4, because therefore the bishop can recapture. But after knight takes, I can't interpose because the knight would jump into e5. And to be fair, not even in the morning round would I really want to play g5 here. Because immediately white would flash out queen h5 and smile at me type of thing. And in this position, white has got the two bishops, and he has a very possible huge pawn center that can come alive. So it's an interesting idea by white because he doesn't want to allow it. So f4 at least is an interesting move, and we'll have to come back at this to see what young Moulton Lai decides to do. He could in theory just allow him to take on e5 and recapture and play against it. And suddenly the knight, which was going very easily to the d6 square, would have preferred to be on d7 and recapture on e5.
So should we have a look at Draken again?
We've been told there's some excitement here.
Some excitement in the chat about this game.
We left it here. Oh, well, we got the position you took.
He took on f3, but he took with a pawn on d4. So let's see. Pawn takes d4 and knight takes d5. Actually makes more sense because knight takes d4, you're losing so much time. Knight g e7. and e4. Well, nothing hugely special. I mean, if black takes on e3, then well, it's just helping white. Bishop takes e3, etc. So I quite like white here. Already he has the bishop pair, and I'm not sure what black actually does.
Yes, and the black pawn on d4 has to always be protected later on, and you don't really ever want to take the knight on d5.
No.
So in theory, to complete his development, he has to play knight somewhere else to g6 and bring out the bishop. And to be honest, it's very easy play for white. And not only does he castle, but he's got bishop f4 coming in the air, and all the white pieces are going to the natural squares.
I think white has even a big advantage here.
Big advantage. We've been told there's some excitement
in Daniel Dwurni's game. He's playing Johannesson on Icelandic.
Shall we have a quick look where this came from? Because I was going to say it looks like a Caro-Kann, but then I realized the pawn is still on c7. So I'm going to say it's a French where he took, which is correct. So
quite quickly, knight c3.
So it was, yes. So
took an e4.
So it transposed the typical Rubinstein, where no matter where, the lazy way to play the French, that to immediately capture an
e4
e4
against knight d2 and knight c3. So now knight d7, knight f3, and knight g2 f6. So just standard moves, bishop b7, queen e2.
Usually white has to decide here whether he's going to try to castle queenside and try to initiate some sort of direct attack, or just complete his development with castle and kingside and say that my pawn on d4 has some value in the center.
Bishop g5, b6, he wants to fianchetto the bishop, but now queenside castle's showing already intentions that he wants to finish this game quite quickly. I believe Daniel Dwurni is an aggressive player. You see Italians tend to be like Vocaturo.
Sorry?
Daniel Vocaturo is quite aggressive, as many of these Italians are. King b1.
You think it's something to do with their Latin background?
I think so. Passionate people and passionate players as well. So a6.
I must admit, I look at this and it seems a little slow for black. But okay, he wants to play the normal moves. He wants to play b5, c5, and
problem is,
the center. But he has to move his queen out of the way.
Takes time. So rook h1, already showing intentions of playing g4, attacking. Bishop to d3. So it seems like the white pieces are taking up some aggressive attacking positions. The knight can jump to e5.
Yes, it's knight will come to e5. The pawn on d4 is obviously not on pre because of bishop takes h7 check, and white wants to play g4 and g5 after moving the bishop to remove the defender. So white, to be honest, we've seen this structure for white many times in these Caro-Kann French positions, where you've castled queenside and you wish to attack on the king side, and you wish to, include the major pieces in the attack somehow. So very often one of the ideas is by playing rook g1, g4, h4, g5.
Yeah, one can also think about a rook lift like rook g1, rook h3 and some lines.
Yes. So I think that the viewers will have to allow us to take a 10-minute break now, so the commentators and many of the chess players can have one more coffee, and therefore we'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you very much for watching.
Welcome to Chess.com. Chess.com is social. Now you can play chess with your friends whenever you want, whether that's middle of the day or middle of the night. You can get instantly matched up with one of over 5 million other members from around the world. You play live games in real time, turn-based games at your convenience, or tournaments with anyone at any time. Chess.com is mobile. You can play online from your computer, or you can play on the go from your tablet or your smartphone. No matter where you go, whether you're at work, grabbing a bite to eat, or just enjoying some time at the park, your games are there with you, and keeping multiple chess games going has never been easier. Chess.com is for learning. Don't just play chess, get better. The best chess training resources have never been more accessible. Learn essential chess strategy quickly and easily with the extremely popular Tactics Trainer tool. Improve your game in ways you didn't know were possible with training videos by chess masters. And regardless of where you're at now, take your game to the next level with multiple simple-to-use training tools. Chess.com is for everyone. Over 250 million chess games have been played on Chess.com. And it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or a grandmaster. Chess.com is the place to play and learn chess. So create your free account now and see what Chess.com is for you.
Long before man reached the remote island of Iceland, a land of ancient ice caves, sprawling glaciers and pristine water, a massive volcanic eruption occurred, creating the Ulvus Spring, a majestic underground spring deep below the Earth's surface. For 5,000 years, water has filtered slowly through layers of lava rock, creating exceptionally pure and naturally alkaline water with a perfect mineral balance. Clean, crisp, and untouched. Discover Iceland's greatest natural resource. Icelandic Glacier.
Welcome back to the 31st edition of the Reykjavik Open, and we're going to go immediately to board 2, where we left it in this position after white had just played e4 in a very unusual Tarish defense. And black took the opportunity to get rid of his isolated d-pawn by capturing en passant.
Yeah, bishop takes e3, the natural move, getting bishop out.
And then again, black solves the problem of getting his pieces out by simply exchanging.
And bishop b4 check. Now Andre simply played king e2. And, well, usually it's not safe to move your king in the center, but here, with the queens perhaps about to be exchanged, shouldn't be a problem. And I think we might see, we might have a bishop pair lesson here quite soon.
Quite soon. And again, Dimitri Andrikhin has shown on many, many times in his battles with Super-Grandmasters that he's proving a player of excellent technique who's incredibly hard to beat.
Yeah.
He's known as somebody with a very, very solid reputation when he's playing other super strong grandmasters, and yet when he plays in open tournaments, he does change his openings and his style to compensate. But this is a very typical position where white can get a small advantage and just push for the rest of the morning. I think we will...
Probably black must exchange.
Must exchange?
Or, well, can he play queen f6 maybe? I'm not sure.
No, it's a possibility because I have to do something about the b2 pawn.
Yeah.
And the sort of traditional move that you would like to play, some sort of rook d1 where you give up the pawn on b2 and you play king f1 and try to take advantage of your lead in development, doesn't actually seem to do anything in this position. So I think queen f6 is a very natural move and would...
Yeah, black will take his time, decide if he wants to suffer in the endgame or try to play on with queen f6.
Yeah, I mean the question is how do you actually respond to queen e4 check, because you still would like to interpose a piece, and you don't want to play queen
like
e7.
Yeah.
You can't play knight e7 because the bishop would be on pre, so that would virtually force, unless you wish to move the king, bishop to e7, and therefore in this position now we can start thinking about a move such as I wanted to play again the idea of rook he1 or something like this, or rook hd1, but I can't quite make it work, to be honest, because the typical plan here is that after you take the pawn and the king retreats, that the b7 pawn is usually going to be lost anyway because you're going to play rook ab1, and then you're trying to take advantage of your two bishops to be able to exploit the long diagonal and the fact that black does not have a light squared bishop. But I must admit, it doesn't seem like I've got enough
just
here.
Be able to castle.
Just castle, give up the pawn on b7, and I think Andrikhin would actually want something more concrete if he was going to gambit such a pawn. I think he will play something a little bit quieter in this position.
Yeah.
So
okay, not too interesting at the moment. Should we move on to the top boards again?
I think so, because we had that very interesting gambit line by Manuel.
Yeah, he sacrificed the pawn, but his position looked
very promising.
Yeah.
We left it. We
bishop
left
d6
it after bishop d6.
Line.
Now go back and move. We left it.
Line bishop d6.
Six.
And then
Yes.
yeah.
And here white continued his development. We mentioned that in this position it was very hard for white to castle because the pawn at h3 is still on pre each time he castles. So knight b3, protecting the d4 square, is again a very natural move. Castles kingside. Again, you can see how we thought castles queenside was an option, but to be honest, with the rook on f8, the rook on a8 coming to e8, black still achieves a very harmonious development.
Yeah, he puts his rooks on the open files, just simple stuff really. Knight b d4.
Wishing to exchange off pieces since he's a pawn up and to release some of the pressure. So black captured. White took back with the knight, which seems normal because you are threatening to take on f5, which I think would be the standard plan.
Yeah, and now bishop e4. This looks like a nice move.
Yeah, I don't really want to take on e4.
No.
No, you're allowing black to get a
Take
bit
with a
too
knight,
much.
you
Yes,
still
yes.
can't castle, f2 will be hanging. This looks like too much trouble. Like bishop, let's just have a
Yes,
quick
yes.
look.
So we can
E4.
see that after bishop takes e4, knight takes
takes
e4, and you can see here that he still can't castle because h3 would be on, and
So
f2 is on pre.
Yeah, bishop e3
So
looks
something like
the
bishop
only move.
e3, but you can see that it's a little bit awkward for white
It
here.
just-
It's almost too easy, and you can start.
Rook a e8 looks like the natural move.
Yes, and you after something obvious, look e8. There's always the knight takes e3 in the air, and bishop takes g3. But immediate threats appear for black, and you can see that he's a huge lead development, and he has already concrete threats.
Yeah.
So bishop takes e4 is not really a consideration.
So he retreated.
So
with
he
the knight.
retreated with knight f3. Black completed his development, rook a8, and now at least white got the castle. So it's interesting in this position, Mamedov is quite happy with his position, even though he sacrificed a pawn for it, but he has, a bit like in other structures, he's managed to get his major pieces and open files very early on move 14. Very often as black, there's no chance in the world you get both rooks and open files, except maybe in a Benko gambit. So h6.
Yeah, he didn't want to allow anything.
Bishop g5 and maybe
Coming
trading
to
more
G5,
pieces.
Yeah. Bishop d2.
So the
Bishop
bishop
f5.
Mhm.
Attacking h3.
So king h2. And interesting that one of the reasons that we both thought that castles queenside would be an obvious option is that it allows black to play moves like g5 without having to worry about the slight exposure of the black king.
But he just did it anyway.
But he did it anyway.
Yeah.
And again, you can see that black has a little bit more space, and there's no real obvious way to take advantage of the slightly loosening move of pawn moves of h6 and g5 in front of one's own king.
Mhm.
Traditionally, you don't wish to create weaknesses in front of your king because you can never bring the pawns back to where they were.
Okay, we
the
have a
cover.
move. He played h4.
He played h4.
Yeah.
hmm So he is trying to take immediate advantage, which is quite interesting, although he himself is opening up a little his own king.
Mhm.
To be honest, if black played and went along with white's idea, in other words, to capture, after something like knight takes, this position structurally would favour white because he'd be threatening knight takes f5 and bishop takes h6.
Mhm.
But I very much doubt that this will happen.
It's noteworthy that, compared to yesterday, Mamedov already spent well over half an hour, whereas yesterday he barely used any time. So
Yes. Well, we mentioned that in fact he's never played this opening before,
yeah,
and in fact the e5 pawn sacrifice of Fresinet has never been played before. So it's quite interesting that he's played this, and he wouldn't have prepared for it because it was a very unusual opening. And it's nice to see, to be honest, the top seed actually having to fight hard in the second round of the Reykjavik Open. Because sometimes they like to go on something like autopilot for the first 2 or 3 rounds. But he's been made to concentrate very hard here to achieve his desired result. What would you say is... I was about to ask you for your opinion, but Mamedov has...
he already gave it to me. Queen f7. Move that, well, wouldn't have immediately popped to my mind.
So we can see, yes. So we can see that he's played the move on our screens with Armenian Grandmaster Hrant Melkunian looking on. The idea is that, of course, that the pawn on g5, well, actually, it's still in theory on pre.
Yeah. So what happens if he?
So if we try to calculate before midday, we'll play pawn takes g5. We kind of assume that he's going to throw in queen h5 check.
Presumably.
And the whole idea is that this is the reason he plays queen h5. He's trying to set up the queen and knight on g4 idea.
I wouldn't like this for white. Knight g4 probably.
And now maybe even the immediate knight g4.
Yeah.
And one possible idea here is just to play bishop e4 next move.
Yeah, maybe even bishop c2.
Maybe even bishop c2.
Yeah, but bishop e4 should be on.
Yeah. With the very standard idea of the rook on f8, threatening just to take away the defender of the h2 square. So a move such as bishop e4, the calm way, but the Icelandic way of bishop c2 and rook takes f3 seems to also suffice.
Yeah, but bishop e4 is a much better move. You don't really need to.
No, but you can see that after playing h4, the low-rated player was perhaps not expecting this move, because when you play such positions, you tend to think, I attack a pawn twice, then black has to defend this pawn or exchange it. But in this position, black is going for a direct attack on the king. He doesn't really care about material. He does not care about the g5 pawn. And in fact, he views the idea of h4 and hg as opening the h-file to allow his queen to enter the game. And you can see here that on our screens that the FIDE master is probably not. This is not the move he was expecting, to be fair.
No. And black is also just threatening to play queen h5, and then he's threatening to take on h4 because of the pin against the g3 pawn. So
I think that the inclusion of the last two moves, h4 and queen f7, have only really benefited black.
Yeah.
Because it's given up the g4 square for the knight, and the queen is coming to h5 with actual threats for the first time in the game.
Yeah.
I think we may go back to our young Hungarian player.
I think White will have a good think.
He'll have a long think here, as we can see on our screens. So we'll go to Richard, playing, I believe, the FIDE master from Germany.
So this go back a few moves.
Yes.
Bishop e6 is what we saw.
And we left it here.
Yeah.
And we see that White decided to retreat his king. So we can see that even on move 14, the king on e1 recaptured on d2 and then went back to e1.
Unfortunately, from there he can't castle.
He still can't castle. Yes, always there.
Might be worth a shot, but I think Richard might notice.
And the DGD boards will not allow it. It'll be very terrible to analyze. So black just completed his development.
Castles.
And
bishop
now
f1.
Bishop f1. Bishop f1 is an interesting move because the bishop on g2 at the moment is hitting the e4 pawn. His d3 square is weak and c4 is weak. So it looks like a natural positional move, but it's kind of, aesthetically it's quite amusing that he's actually played his king back to e1, his bishop back to f1, and black has just continued to develop pieces.
Yeah, maybe he's just setting up for the next game.
Yes. And of course, in this position, where the rook on a8, without actually moving, has ended up on an open file, the rook on f8 has now been allowed to enter the game by Richard Rapport's next move, which is
typical.
The typical lever to break through.
Typical Rapport move, in some ways.
And now, so we can see that if we capture with the e pawn, we already start thinking about moves like e3.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can see that the black king is the white king, I should say, is basically looking like he's in grave danger in his own e1 square. But again, I do not believe that e takes f will be a consideration. But the natural move is g takes f. And now we have at least two moves to consider here. And we must remember that when the pawn moved to f4, it also stopped protecting the pawn on e4. So that's a second consideration. So originally in this position, when a pawn captures like this,
knight takes f4 might be an idea.
Knight takes f4. And if capture, you could even consider queen takes d4 or rook takes e4. And to be honest,
bishop b3 also if you just want to.
Bishop b3 if you want to, yes.
If you want to take back the material. I mean, the king will still be stuck and the pawn structure has been damaged, so might be one idea.
And I cannot take the pawn on e4 because I'd be walking into the pin.
Yeah, then I might change my mind and go bishop d5. Or rook e8, yes, much better even.
Okay, so we believe that after capture, knight takes f4, yes? We can see...
But black, white can ignore it, play something like, knight c5. Or c3, well c5 probably.
C5, because
looks more
we
active.
would like
Yeah.
to exchange off if we can. And the knight on a4, as you mentioned before, was always in danger of being won by the bishop on b3, double attack.
Yeah, so there are some moves to consider. So he can take on with he can take it two ways on f4, or perhaps he can take on e4. But
Well, it's black.
but in this position, I don't see any immediate killer blow. But
No. But black has to probably do something about this bishop as well. I wanted to set up some sort of bishop f5. So therefore, I know, but maybe there's a bishop c4 check afterwards as well.
Yeah,
So I
well,
wanted
bishop d5 might be okay.
might be a simpler way to play it.
Might be. I mean, it's hard to calculate. E takes f4.
And then you still
Maybe
can play
E3.
e3 with the standard
Yeah.
discovered attack on the rook.
If f3, queen h4, something like this.
Yes.
King t1, then maybe you can play b6.
You can
Among
see,
other things, I mean, it looks.
no, there's
You get all the pieces on the back rank, so
now you can see on our screens that Mamadaro has left, and the young player from Germany is in deep contemplation, because in this position, of course, after the f4 move played, he has at least 3 moves to consider. And to be honest, if he does not find a way, then achieving f4 for free will be a disaster for white,
yeah.
because he's behind in development.
Queen takes e4, probably suicidal, just rook e8 or something.
I believe the young player from Hungary has got the position he desired,
Yeah.
and I must admit it seems as though his pawn sacrifice with a4 was fully justified. But yet again, it seems a bit sad to think that the king on e1 and the bishop on f1 have all moved beforehand.
Yeah.
So it's not really surprising that black, with such a huge lead in development, has been able to play a move such as f4 to open up the position on the underdeveloped king on e1. So we tend to think that the young Hungarian player has got almost a decisive attack happening. It'd be very surprising if white actually had a very good defense here.
Yeah. So probably both captures on f4, we can take with a knight, play bishop e3.
Okay, I think we will leave the young player that we can see on our screens. He does not look, hasn't put it,
Too happy.
overjoyed at his position. There's something about playing on the stage versus a strong player, and you suddenly realize that he's attacking you with virtually every piece he has, and you still have 4 pieces on the back rank. I think we shall visit the leading Bulgarian player in the tournament. We've just gone from the leading Hungarian player. And this is the young lady we were talking about before. We have Anna Maya Kazarian from the Netherlands, who we believe to be 15 years of age.
Okay.
And she has been incredibly successful in her own age group in the World Youth and European Youth Championships. So she's considered the rising star of Dutch female chess. And as I said, she has made a huge increase in her rating in just the last year. And she has the white pieces versus Grandmaster Ivan Cheparinov. I must say that I know Cheparinov from many, many years ago, that he was also somebody who Silvio Dynalov took under his wing. Silvio Dynalov being the long-time manager of Topalov. And I remember that years after Topalov became successful, and most people know that Topalov at some stage played in virtually every single Spanish Open tournament, and he managed to get his first, large rating through simply dominating Spanish Open tournaments for many years. And then he started playing the elite tournaments, where he adapted his style and he became one of the leading players in the world. And then a few years later, I was visiting friends in Malaga, and I saw a very young Ivan Chiparinov playing in the Malaga Open with Danilov there.
Yeah.
And I saw he had a cream suit. He was a very young man. And the thing I always remember about this cream suit, it was the middle of summer. It was like 38 degrees in Malaga. Everybody else was in shorts and T-shirts. But Chiparinov had his cream suit on. And as soon as he finished his game, he would go get changed. But he would always wear the same suit to the game. And then I saw him at another tournament in Spain, and sure enough, the cream suit came back.
The cream suit.
And then, funnily enough, I then saw him about 4 months later in Holland, and I cannot pronounce this correctly, and our Dutch producers will laugh, because us Australians would always say Hoogeveen, but I've been told about 1 million times that it's Hoogeveen.
Oh.
But even then, they'll still somehow criticize my pronunciation, probably quite correctly. And yet, the young player, Ivan Chiparinov, in the Dutch tournament was there with the cream suit.
Of course.
But at least now the weather was actually more suitable for this. But it was
More suitable for a suit.
Yes, more suitable. But the one interesting thing is that he was a very active player that Danilov basically took under his wing. He went and played all these open tournaments. He worked extremely hard. He has been credited with much of the work that Topalov has done in the opening. Many of the opening novelties that Topalov has played have been worked out by his team, with Chiparinov being one of the leading players within the team that nearly all top players have these days that are helping them. And it was interesting because in those days he was a very young player who was just striving to become a decent player, and then a grandmaster, then a decent grandmaster. And now he's been hovering around 2,700 for many years.
For a while, yeah.
So he's now, I believe, 29 years old. And many times, especially in the olden days, before database and computers, players yet achieved perhaps another jump around 29. And this is one of the things that Topalov was also famous, that at 29 he actually then went forward a bit more. So he went from world's top 10, and then he actually started playing for the World Championship and achieved another level. So for me, it's always interesting to see a player as Chiparinov, whether he can still make that one more jump into the world's elite at the age of 29.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
but I told you, he was on my team this weekend, and actually, for a while now he hasn't worked with Danilov or Topalov, so he's for like 2.5 years. So he's mostly on his own now.
Yes.
But he's a very strong player.
Very strong player.
Yeah.
We can see the young lady from the Netherlands concentrating very hard on.
Yeah, I mean she has, of course, a threat to deal with. Black is simply threatening to play Rook E3, attacking the Queen, and pawn on G3.
We can see that this came about from a Sicilian Najdov, which is one of the Bulgarian players' specialties, who's been playing the Sicilian Najdov for many years.
Let's quickly go through the opening.
Yes, because it was a bit unusual.
So Najdov,
yes.
and she went with G3, which is
A solid approach.
yeah, a solid approach. And yeah, nothing that hasn't been seen before. Bishop F5. Then at some stage, Black gained the bishop here. 95. Yeah, around here. Yeah, he took on D2. Now he has the bishop here, and of course he tries to activate his bishop, and on Rook E8, activating the rook as well.
Okay, well, I must admit, I mean, in many ways, she seems very well prepared for the game. She tried to get a solid position from one of the sharper Najdov Sicilians by playing the fianchetto G3. And in this position, okay, you tend to think that, as you described it before, that Black not only has the bishop pair, but the dark squared bishop on G5 that has no opposite number is dominating the black squares that do not have any pawns to help them protect. So, as you mentioned, the E3 square is very weak, and there's no way to oppose it. You cannot play Rook E1. So therefore, it seems as though Black will achieve entry into the black position via the E3 square.
Yeah, I like Black here.
Yeah. It's one of these positions that looks optically, White seems to have a bit more space, shall we say, because of the white pawn on D5. Yeah. But in reality, the bishop on G5 and the rook on E8 are forcing access into the position. And as you said,
this guy really doesn't do much at the moment.
I think that black must be better here.
Yeah.
I've been told that my countryman's position,
Moulton,
is interesting. So, if I'm allowed a little tiny bit of nationalistic, I was going to say pride, but in this case it's concern because.
Okay. Yeah. So we like Schipperino here. I think should be safely somewhat better here at least. So should we go to Moulton's game?
Yes.
So we had f4 and he played
f6 to solidify, then c4.
f6 and c4.
So to be honest, White has achieved what traditionally he wants. He wants to get the rolling pawn center and activate his two bishops. Black would like to fix the position in the center and try to find outposts for his knights. And very often, as we were saying before, that the advantage of having the two bishops is to make the bishop that does not have an opposite number strong. So by playing a move like c4 allows us to either bring the bishop to b2 or it will end up on f4 if and when black would capture an f4.
I don't like
the
knight on a5. I mean,
the knight on a5
a normal plan might be to play bishop out, to play b6 and bring it to d6, but you already have your other knight who wants to go to d6. So
no, the knight on a5 is a slight problem because it does not have an entry square forward, and one has to be created to go backwards.
Yeah, so it takes on f4, concrete move. And White wants to recapture this pawn, so he plays knight b3. But okay,
I must admit it.
Gets rid of the.
I must admit, at first glance, I would like to leave the knight on a5 there. Okay, he wants to be able to play bishop takes f4 with tempo, so therefore playing knight b3 allows this. And if you play knight to f3, then that stops the rook on f1 attacking the pawn on f4. So knight b3 is an obvious move, but it solves the problem that you were discussing before.
Pros and cons. You give up some things for this. And f3 doesn't want him to
take on f4 with tempo. Now, it's an interesting positional decision here, because traditionally, if you recapture with the rook, and black managed to put a knight on e5, then the knight on e5 would have that outpost that could not be attacked by another pawn. Although the knight is on e8, so it's not. It will take a while to get to the e5 square.
I mean, it could maneuver.
It could maneuver
E6,
via f7.
Yeah.
So at least
E5,
f3 immediately asks the problem. And of course, the second option is to play g takes f to give himself the extremely large mobile pawn center.
Maybe f4, bishop e2,
and I must
e5
admit,
at some point.
If we're talking about our dream position, you've basically described it. The typical position where you have the two bishops in long raking diagonals on the b2 and d3, and therefore the rooks would centralize on e1 and f1, and White would play f4 and e5, and this would appear the typical domination of two bishops.
But he took with the rook.
He took with the rook.
But g takes f3 is something I would definitely have spent some time on in this position. But the rook takes. Yeah.
Okay, so
I mean, still he has ideas of bishop b2, rook a to f1.
Yes, it's still a relatively easy position for White to play.
And then maybe e5.
Well, I was about to say that you can. Well, it's black to play, of course. So after knight d6, going to f7.
Seems like the normal plan to bring the knight to e5.
And I must admit, I tried to play. Yes, I tried to play e5 immediately to cause some mischief. Yes,
tactical point. So this would win material for White. So knight d6 might not be possible, which is
taking advantage of the leading development to disturb black's plan. But if I cannot play knight d6, it's not so nice.
So Moulton actually played queen e7.
You can see to protect the rook on f8. And to still have the maneuver, but now I think maybe I can get what I want as White.
Bishop e2. Let's try to go straight forward for black, knight d6.
And now, we would like to play some sort of breakthrough move immediately, but I don't believe it works. The typical idea of opening the position immediately with e5, and after pawn takes, we can take on f8. And then if queen takes, we can recapture an e5. So therefore, if king takes, it allows either rook f1 or rook e1.
Yeah.
And to be honest, even here we could contemplate taking on h7. with rook f1 to follow. And I must admit, the two bishops seem to be having a little bit too much fun for my liking, as somebody who hopes my fellow countrymen.
I think white can play quite safely with in this way to open the position and just have the two bishops.
No, if you have the two bishops, you want to open,
yeah.
So this is the position. Was knight d6 played, I should say?
Queen e7
queen
was
e7
played,
is the last
so
one
that's
played. Okay, so I think that white should play the standard bishop b2.
Bishop b2 looks.
And then, as I said, either rook e1 or rook f1.
Okay, we actually
have a first result.
A result. So we're going to leave this game and we're going to go to
Richard Rapport.
Yeah. Well, to be honest,
we saw that position.
After f4, it looked quite bad for white. He played g takes f4.
Queen h4.
Queen h4.
One of the moves we were thinking.
Yeah.
And one of the moves I did ask was, I said, well, it allowed queen takes e4, which protected the pawn on e3, and allowed an attack the bishop on e6. But black had the hammer blow, knight takes f4. To which, if pawn takes...
I think maybe bishop b3 is one move. Rook e8 might be another.
I was about to say rook e8, yeah?
Yeah.
Because we have, any number that will be discovered no matter what happens next move, because both the queen and king are on the file. And I've got to be honest, this does not look...
Everything is...
No, because you two pieces, and you still allow discovered.
There's also rook takes f4,
rook takes
bishop b3.
Very, very nice move, knight takes f4.
Yeah.
So okay, let's just see.
So he played knight f3, but he loses the queen in one move.
Oh,
he's attacking the queen, but we don't have to move it. Knight g2.
Okay, a slightly sad end to blunder your queen like this, but to be fair, his position looked a little bit fatal anyway.
Yeah.
But okay, in this position, is there a better move? Which is the problem, because at the moment, it seems as though the position is basically collapsing.
Yeah.
Because again, black has a direct attack on white's king, and there doesn't seem to be any obvious defensive moves.
Exactly.
So I think that even though white's 18th move, knight f3, lost his queen, the position was completely indefensible. So, to be honest, Richard Rapport has achieved the dream of everybody who plays 2 rounds a day. He's managed to win quickly
18 moves.
in 18 moves as black against a young player, nearly 2300. He can walk and stroll back to his hotel, which is only a couple of 100 yards from the playing venue, and relax until the next round, which I believe is at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
So therefore, and then he hopes that his next opponent, which will be even stronger, has a very long game, as it were.
Yeah, next round it should be, should face some international master, I believe. So yeah, quite a devastating win, and
I think
something that Simon will like for his Dutch.
So we can see a tweet here from Chris Catch. He says that he's been looking very closely at the Maudara game, and he says that he believes that the Shark is preparing a direct attack on the king.
Should we go back to it?
We should.
Was quite interesting. Queen f7. We thought Skuzen would think for a while here. And played rook h1, trying to fortify the h4 pawn. But now bishop c5.
Okay, attacking now the loose pawn on f2.
Just weakened, and bishop e1. It's becoming quite passive now.
No, and all the black pieces seem to be going forward, and all the white pieces seem to be retreating.
Yeah, g takes h4.
And now this is the other big thing, is that he would like to play knight takes.
Yeah, this is the positional move that you would like to play, but probably just knight g4. You can probably just take here.
Ah, yes, and there we are. Discovered on c2 minimum.
Minimum, yeah.
So not feasible. So if you go back, he must recapture with the ugly-looking g takes h4.
And now king h8.
To simply, and this is the one nice thing, is that black does have more space on the king side.
It's quite impressive what they're doing on on the top two boards.
I mean...
well, top three. Just winning in 20 moves with
and
black.
with virtual direct attacks with the black pieces, yeah? None of this, get a safe position, grind away, get the safe small edge in an end game and win, but direct attacks early in the morning, go back to your hotel.
Yeah. The intention was clear from move 4. He wanted to
get it over quickly.
Yeah.
I think we have to appease our American viewers and to have a look at Alexander Shabalov's game.
Yeah, meanwhile, it looks quite good.
Oh, this looks
for Shaq.
For Shaq, yes. Of course, Alexander Shabalov is originally from Latvia, and together with Alexei Shirov, they were very famously very aggressive, creative players. Of course, Shabalov has been living in the US for many years, and I've been told that he achieved entry into the US Championships by winning the US Open, and therefore very soon he's playing in the US Championships, and I believe that he's come across to Europe to play some tournaments to prepare for the US Championships, and he's come across to play the Reykjavik Open, and he's another player who in his day was another famous attacking player.
Yeah.
Who would often play very swashbuckling attacks on the direct to attack the other person's king.
So seems like he has one pawn. He's playing Giampiero Adocchio, which sounds Italian, but he actually had a German flag when I was walking by earlier. He played here G5. White retreated, intending to meet G takes H4 with B takes A6 probably. But Shabalov took on D5 and played knight C7. So now the bishop is attacked, it must move. And looks like Shabalov simply won this pawn on B5. So
maybe not so swashbuckling, but
it looks like Giampiero missed something in the complications. And
well, the worst thing is that the D6 pawn was always en prise, and yet after knight takes B5,
it's actually already finished. He doesn't have a nice square for the rook actually, because we always have this.
Oh, of course, if rook A2 just allows knight C3, rook A4 allows knight C3.
And
the rook on B3.
Rook anywhere else, we can just take on A5. Now it's two pawns.
Check, and it's two pawns.
We still haven't castled.
Oh, so
and bishop takes B5. Then you can't castle, rook E8 is coming. Yes. So it just looks...
Oh, this looks terrible, because after bishop takes B5 and rook E8 check, the white king is...
King is stuck here, and once you move the rook to E3, then this is falling. So
we've been informed that in fact his opponent felt that this position was
already... felt rightly disgusted with this final position.
No, it's terrible when you don't have a good square to put the rook, and yet visually you see that the rook can go, well, has access to whatever.
A number of squares.
Number of squares, but unfortunately none of them is actually viable. And when you lose two pawns immediately and your king is getting attacked. So it seems though that Alexander Shabalov has finished his game and is also taking a more relaxing morning and having a little walk around Reykjavik.
So it seems like all the aggressive players are doing their job today.
So you consider this like a normal sort of scenario in these double round days? I was always taught in the olden days, you got your technical position, and you won using your famous Grandmaster technique, and instead the younger generation, and Shabalov is certainly not a young man anymore, but they're using their attacking flair to achieve the same result.
I don't remember so many miniatures last year in double round. So
yes, but also with the black pieces, if you think about it. We've talked about
Shabalov,
Mamedarov, and now Shabalov. So three. Shall we have a look as to how Divirny is doing?
Yeah, he had an interesting.
He played rook and HG1, if we remember, in this Rubinstein French game.
We had actually. We have this position here, knight d5,
bishop d2,
and he simply chopped off the knight and played knight e5.
It looks incredibly similar to these Caro-Kann positions, except that black has not played the weakening h6 move, which always helps, obviously, that g4, g5 will happen.
I forgot to click this. So I mean, white's intentions are clear. G4, attack.
And now black still wants to achieve the liberating C5 move. But at least there's no target, yeah? Black has no weaknesses yet. Obviously, you can see Queen H5 about to happen, which will force one of the pawns in front of the black king to move.
Yeah, so the immediate idea is Queen H5, Rook G3 to attack on the H file. Something like this. Typical attacking idea, but
he immediately decided to exchange off.
E5, pawn takes. Now he's just going for...
Yes, he's double rooks, so the
Double
g-pawn
rooks.
would not be on pre when he played rook h4.
So he plays C3 to keep the bishop, keep the pieces on. Probably because with the bishop on C2 you're always covering the D1 square, so you don't have to worry about too much about white entering your position. Okay, and
We've reached
H4 was the last move. So,
So
the rooks are all dressed up on the G file, but
nowhere to
go at the moment.
I have to ask an obvious question, because I have also two black rooks doubled on the D file.
Yes.
And if I've got two rooks doubled on the D file and I can see a 7th rank available to me, I would be curious to ask the question.
But does it do anything?
Maybe not. Okay, one idea here is to... I somehow want to include the queen in the attack. And one idea is to play something like Queen D7. And I assume that white wants to continue with H5.
I would agree.
And now my idea beforehand was to play Queen D5. And one idea is to simply play Queen F3 to swap off the queens. And the second idea is to somehow threaten some sort of rook takes E2, Queen D1 if the rook moves off the back rank. But Queen F3
For
to somehow...
instance, this.
Yeah, something like this. Because the whole point is that the white rook on G1 cannot go to the H file.
Yeah.
But to be honest, the point of putting the queen on D5 is to put it on F3 and to swap off the major piece. And also that way at least the bishop on B7 is included in the game. And the queen obviously sits in the center. And I'm okay, obviously white has a very obvious plan of attacking on the H file, but I'm not sure. I think black has all of the pieces.
It takes time, and I can probably just take with the F pawn on G6 once you line your pieces up on the H file. So I'm not sure that white should be all that successful on the king side. So rook D2, I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, look, you double rooks in the D file,
Yeah, well,
you're going to play rook D2. And after Queen E3...
That's the point of grabbing the file,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
put your rooks on the 7th. So
And I think the queen belongs on D5, I'm sorry, because the queen on E7 doesn't really achieve that.
doesn't
much.
really have a role.
No.
What about... No. Well, can I? Well, probably not. Taking the pawn is probably too much. You must be, be able to take
I
it.
think there must be a Queen D3 check happening, or
And
Bishop
then-
E4.
And then Bishop
yeah.
E4
Yes,
looks like a good follow-up.
something like this, yeah?
Yeah.
This is a little bit too easy. But here you don't even have to be, you've got
Well, we could sacrifice back.
yes.
Yeah, and be a pawn up.
Okay, but maybe you don't have to...
The king is a little bit dodgy.
Yeah. But actually, I don't even have to play Bishop E4. Yeah?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, we play, well, King C1 is forced. And here I was thinking, because I just realized Rook D4 is a slight pain. I wanted to play Bishop F3, but I think Rook D4 will hit me.
Will hit you hard.
Will hit me hard.
Yeah. Okay, at least Bishop E4, but he actually played C4. I mean,
Oh, he played C4. Did not play Rook D2.
no.
Okay, but he still has Rook D2 coming next move. It's still available.
Yeah.
And maybe, as you said, in the line you analysed, he simply took the pawn on c5. And I've got to be honest, there's no direct attack for white yet. It still takes him a few moves to play h5 and open an avenue into the black king. So I don't think this is so clear at all yet. There's no... Both sides have very active pieces.
Yeah, we'll come back to this one.
Yes. This still has a way to go.
Yeah.
Shall we visit Grandmaster Gwaine Jones?
He is indeed a Grandmaster, and he has
This is the interesting
unusual outposted bishop on d3. So we had this position with b5, where we left them off earlier. And let's see what happened. c4, which white took. Now f5.
Very, very typical of Gwaine's active style.
Yeah. To me, putting the bishop on b2,
and allowing
this was probably not
c4.
the idea to get blocked in like this.
No.
So looks like black has been somewhat successful here.
Well, he seems to have completely dominated the center, of course.
Rook b d1, and now bishop d3. Yeah, nice move. If he takes, then there's of course.
Yes, he cannot.
Gonna be a fork on
he
e4,
cannot recapture. So he will be able to play e4 next move and have a preponderance of pawns in the center.
So therefore, white had to allow this bishop to enter his position, and for black to play e4 here.
Now, I should say that Gwaine Jones is a famous games player. He goes to games nights, he plays all these different types of games. And here it seems he's almost decided he wants to play checkers.
C takes d4, how do you, well,
I must admit, if you
he's
showed me,
sacrificing the exchange, but...
it almost looks like one of these sort of retrograde puzzles. Say, please tell me how the bishop got to d3.
I will have one of those in the Reykjavik Open pub quiz.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, we see that, in fact, Gwaine Jones's 23rd move, knight f5,
Sacrificing the
exchange, but
does get rid of white's only active piece.
Yes. I was about to say that it's interesting to note that both white bishops are completely locked in.
Horrible.
And
Terrible.
And unfortunately, his rooks do not have any open files, and his only active piece has been swapped off for a rook. And I'm sure that Gwaine is actually very, very happy with this position.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to take on d4.
He can take on d4 anytime he wants. He will take with the knight.
Yeah.
And at some stage, he will use his huge pawn majority in the center to actually push forward. And I would say this is completely over.
Yeah, I think this might be just winning for black.
Yeah. I think we should visit the number 1 seed.
But it looks like a nice game.
It's a very nice game. In fact, we may have to ask the young English Grandmaster to come in, perhaps.
Okay, so we left Manuel after king h8. And the options don't
We
look.
can see Mamedarov now in a very relaxed pose on our screens.
King g1, trying to run with the king. And now we have our current position here, king f1. And Mamedarov is thinking.
I'm not sure you call that thinking. I think it's more like, what should I have for lunch?
Where's Waldo?
Well, actually, it looks like he's wearing Waldo's jumper.
Ah.
But okay, but I mean, many of the top players, of course, can analyze incredibly well, and they do not need to actually concentrate completely on the board. And he's played a move. So it's interesting that he actually just relaxed. Or maybe he just wants to go to bed. Maybe he's thinking, why do I play tournaments with 2 rounds a day where I have to play before midday?
Yeah.
And yet he played bishop e4, as you said.
But some of these top players, like Shirov and Ivanchuk, I mean, they're staring into the air and they're staring right at you, but actually they're analyzing stuff.
Yes.
It looks like they're completely disinterested, but
everything
is,
It was much worse than that, because I remember, walking through the Olympiad, and very often they'd look like they were looking directly at you as you walk past, and you think, what have I done?
Especially Shirov.
Oh yes, with Shirov, yes. Doesn't help that he's 6'8" or something. But yes, and you walk by, and yet, of course, he still played incredibly creative games and was part of the world's elite for many, many years. And you can see that Mamedarov here, well, to be honest, I still think that he looks a bit more tired than concentrating.
Yeah, maybe.
But
the position looks
the position is still very active for black, and he has, like typically all good players, every single one of his pieces is basically in its optimum square, and they're all more active than the white counterpart. Both black rooks are better than both white rooks. Both black bishops are better than the black.
Yeah,
white bishop.
the king is stuck on f1.
And the
rooks don't coordinate. The bishop is passive. Everything is passive. I think it's just a matter of time till black finds some kind of breakthrough. I mean, many ideas. One is to just put the knight on h5 and f4.
Yes.
You have to look out for sacrifices as well.
No, I very much like your idea of putting the knight on f4, because then we have to do something about a poor bishop on g2, and as you mentioned, the king on f1. It's interesting that there was this exchange of g-pawns, and yet the black king does not feel the draft, as we say. It's just sitting here, and this is mainly because the black pieces dominate the center and basically the whole board. Yeah? So it's one of these unusual positions. You can say that every single one of black's pieces is better than its opposite counterpart. And that's enough. And you don't have to even think about counting the pawns, to be honest. So I must admit, this looks like a decisive position already.
Yeah.
There's still quite a few moves to go, but unfortunately, the bishop on g2 is going to be attacked on the open g file. And basically the white king on f1 has nowhere to hide. It cannot exactly escape to the queen side. It cannot go to h2. So there's no easy way for white to improve his position.
It's not easy for white to make a move. Yeah, it looks like he played rook h3.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, all these moves, bishop e1, rook h3. I mean, we've all had games like these where we have to play some very odd-looking moves, and it's just.
Well, we've been saying that the high-rated players are not used to playing morning round games, but that's not to say that the lower-rated counterparts are enjoying the early morning start either.
I mean, knight h5 looks quite normal. Stopping rook g3, with various ideas. I mean, it looks quite good for black. We should maybe
yes, I think we
try
should
to get around to some other games.
Yes. So we have.
What do you want to look at next?
I think we should look at Simon Agestein's game. That we have not seen him. We did not look at any of his game yesterday. Of course, Simon Agestein is known as the first Norwegian superstar chess player in many ways.
Yeah.
Famously, he was regarded as a super amateur in his younger years, because he was also basically a super amateur footballer who in fact played at a very high level. He
played actually for the national team.
He played for the national team.
Norwegian. And
in fact, it was an interesting story that he was playing for the national team and yet still playing in Super-Grandmaster tournaments, which were round robins.
I don't think there are many Grandmasters who have achieved that.
No, I was actually trying to think.
He's the only one.
He's yes.
I know one from Iceland. His name is Helgi Gretarsson. He was a goalkeeper, but he only played for junior national teams, like under 18, stuff like that, under 16. So, which is quite impressive.
Yes.
But
the one interesting thing is that Simon had a knee injury in his mid-20s, which unfortunately curtailed his football career. And many people expected that this would allow him to concentrate all of his energies on chess. Yeah. But in fact, in some ways, he liked the ability to combine both, and therefore he didn't actually, have the progression that many people expected. And for many years, he was in charge of a Norwegian elite school, shall we say, for Scandinavian players that came. So anyhow, I think we should have a look at his game. And
we had a quiet position. At some point, it seems like black sacrificed a pawn. I'm trying to find that moment. Knight f4, e5. Yeah, giving up. He's giving up the d5 pawn. for this check, and now the h2 pawn is hanging. So most likely white will have to give up this h2 pawn. But on the other hand, the king looks quite safe on e2 if you were thinking about king safety.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely open center, of course, and the king sits on e2, but like in many of these, if we look at a Sicilian position with reverse colors, that the pawns in the center cover all the squares, and there's no obvious way for black to take advantage of the white king. The problem with this position is that if I exchange on d5, it helps white more than black, unfortunately, even though it would release the bishop on g7. I would say that white should still be reasonably happy with his position. Okay, I agree that black will probably want to take on h2 to get something for his troubles.
Yeah, if white allows it.
If white allows it.
White to move.
Well, I mean, it's not incredibly easy to defend the h2 pawn, because obviously we've just come back from...
If you come back, then you just...
Yes, we can repeat, basically.
If we go to h1, I'm not sure we can do that,
but almost certainly this will not happen because, well, okay, Simon, of course, can repeat moves and then change his mind.
I was thinking if there's knight e6, but okay, I'm not sure. Yeah, so I mean, it's nothing too clear in this position, really.
No, well, there are no concrete lines yet.
No.
But okay, black's given up this central pawn for a bit of activity and to
but
attack.
I like white. I mean, he has a basic pair, he has a c file. Somehow this looks more active and easier to play, I think.
All of the white pieces are active, and somehow black ended up with rooks on a8 and b8. And aesthetically, they're not actually doing anything. So just because of this, and we have obviously our double rooks on the c file, which can enter, the position optically allows us to say that white has the better placed minor pieces. So
yeah, so should we...
Yes. I'd like to have a look at the Divisioni game that we were talking about before, if possible, where we had the double rooks. Both sides, in fact, had double rooks. And in fact, black was threatening rook d2 and trying to enter, which, as we can see, has actually happened.
Yeah, we saw c4.
And
this might actually be potentially one of the upsets, but
yes.
Well, too early to say.
No, but at least all of the black pieces are active, and his rooks on the d file, to be honest, seem better placed than the white rooks. Again, if you allow white to have a few moves in a row, he can open the position up, but it's not entirely obvious what the threat is. Normally you have some sort of sacrifice on h7 or f7 or something, but the white queen on e1 cannot easily come to the attack. If we look at the times on our screen...
There's only 2 minutes left.
He only has 2 minutes left. Of course, he does get 30 seconds a move, but to be honest, he's still only a move 27.
Yeah, that's not very practical,
where
to be honest.
Where the Grandmaster has still got basically the best part of an hour, although he will not be overjoyed by the way he's played his game. But Johannesson only has 2 minutes, and he's looking for something a little bit concrete here.
Yeah,
but maybe he should just try to somehow...
Maybe just queen d5, just...
Yes.
I mean,
No, I like queen d5 because you're completely dominating one file.
Yeah.
And
anytime you play bishop b4, you can play rook d1.
Yes. No, queen d5 is a very, very natural move.
Yeah.
And to be honest, white doesn't actually have a threat yet. I can just recapture on g6.
Yeah.
I think, okay, we'll have to come back to this game soon, but unfortunately I did not realize that the black player only had 2 minutes left.
1 minute now.
Oh, 1 minute now. Okay, even with 30-second increments, this is not much fun. I've been told that my countrymen might be in a spot of bother.
Shall we have a quick look?
Shall we have a quick look,
yes. And then maybe a quick break after that. Okay, Elo.
Yes, he's in the middle.
Johannesson.
And Shabalov. Oh, well, we can see the two bishops have immediately...
Okay, we had I mean...
Yes.
Not hard to predict.
Mm-hmm.
Bishop e2, knight d6, e5.
Yes, the predicted move.
Yeah, we thought this was the easiest way to get a
Now White has had the two bishops. He's managed to
comfortable
activate.
position for White.
I know he...
And rook e1.
Now you have to favor White here.
Of course.
And, okay, there is no immediate threat, but okay, there's some bishop c3, obvious move, and then basically somehow White has to bring his queen into the game. But bishop c3 looks like the obvious idea to completely coordinate the pieces and allow the rook to enter into the attack.
Yeah. So black to move, so has to.
Because normally I want to play, bishop to f5, bishop out, but I cannot do it straight away. Can I play bishop?
Maybe you can.
Maybe I can play bishop f5?
Because the bishop is pinned
It's
at
pinned
the moment.
at one moment. If I try to... No, I can't actually cause... I want to maybe play bishop g3 and protect the rook this way instead of c3. The queen has to cover the knight. And now I wanted to play, but it doesn't quite work. I wanted to...
Maybe you can just take here.
Yes, I wanted to take on d6. And I was hoping for an in-between move somewhere here.
Yeah, maybe just take here.
Uh-huh.
And
No.
pawn is a pawn.
Pawn is a pawn. No. Very pleasant position for White. In fact, very close to winning. So that bishop g3 might be a very good response to bishop f5.
Yeah.
And
bishop
the
g4 as well, because, well, yeah.
Okay.
Because you always have the b7 pawn hanging for play bishop g3.
Yes.
Queen somewhere, take, and this will hang.
Yes. And the worst thing is that in all of these positions, White is not only up in material, but he's still better developed, and he has a
protected pass pawn.
Protected pass pawn on d5. This is not a pleasant position. We are Michael Doherty. Do we know what country he's from?
From Canada.
He's from Canada. I knew the name. He's a frequent visitor to Europe. He plays in a lot of tournaments.
I'm wondering if he's an IM.
No. FM. He's a FIDE master.
He's a FIDE master. Yeah. Okay.
And I think that this...
Left hand, Ingvar. Your left hand. Your left hand. Or your left.
What?
The title. I had it on the screen. Never mind.
Never mind.
So our producers...
yeah, it's on my, my left hand, FM. No, right, it's a right hand, motherfucker. Okay. I think we need more coffee.
I think we need more coffee,
break.
unfortunately. He's been clutching his empty cup for 10 minutes now. So I think we'll leave it here, but we can see that this is one of the possible upsets of the round.
Yeah.
And interesting to see how Devirny manages to... Well, to be honest, his opponent is in very bad time trouble. But we will now wander the halls looking for interesting games with some coffee in our hand. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Welcome to chess.com. Chess.com is social. Now you can play chess with your friends whenever you want, whether that's middle of the day or middle of the night. You can get instantly matched up with one of over 5 million other members from around the world. You play live games in real time, turn-based games at your convenience, or tournaments with anyone at any time. Chess.com is mobile. You can play online from your computer, or you can play on the go from your tablet or your smartphone. No matter where you go, whether you're at work, grabbing a bite to eat, or you're just enjoying some time at the park, your games are there with you, and keeping multiple chess games going has never been easier. Chess.com is for learning. Don't just play chess, get better. The best chess training resources have never been more accessible. Learn essential chess strategy quickly and easily with the extremely popular Tactics Trainer tool. Improve your game in ways you didn't know were possible with training videos by chess masters. And regardless of where you're at now, take your game to the next level with multiple simple-to-use training tools. Chess.com is for everyone. Over 250 million chess games have been played on Chess.com. And it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or a grandmaster. Chess.com is the place to play and learn chess. So create your free account now and see what Chess.com is for you.
My name is Arna, and this black beach is my secret.
Hann setti á sig húna og hélt heimaleið. Það enginn stígur þar sem hann gengur.
My name is Sigurður Pétursson.
My name is Unnar.
My name is Margaret, and I am an archaeologist.
And this is Thomas.
Hann á heima nær en þú heldur. Ekki vanmeta fjarlægðina. Hann á heima nær en þú heldur.
My name is Victor, and surfing in Ólafsfjörður is my secret.
And this nature pool is my little secret.
My name is Guðni.
My name is Manuel.
This lagoon, this church.
And this pool in Hofsós is my secret.
Come and try it for yourself.
Takturinn tekur hann og leiðir hann heim. Hann setur á sig húna og heldur heimaleið. Að kjálkan sem umlykur hann er vatn í myrkrinu. Fuglinn leiðir hann aftur tilbaka. Hann á heima nær en þú heldur. Ekki vanmeta fjarlægðina. Hann á heima nær en þú heldur. Ekki vanmeta fjarlægðina.
Long before man reached the remote island of Iceland, a land of ancient ice caves, sprawling glaciers and pristine water, a massive volcanic eruption occurred, creating the Ulvus Spring, a majestic underground spring deep below the Earth's surface. For 5,000 years, water has filtered slowly through layers of lava rock, creating exceptionally pure and naturally alkaline water with the perfect mineral balance. Clean, crisp, and untouched, discover Iceland's greatest natural resource. Icelandic Glacier.
Welcome back to the 31st edition of the Reykjavik Open, and we're starting to get some decisive results in.
All over the place. Yes.
And we're going straight now to our top seed, Shak Mamedaro from Azerbaijan. And we can see that we left off the position here after Rook H3. And you mentioned yourself that the idea to play Knight H5, Knight H4 would be a very tempting one for black. And in fact, Mamedaro played Knight H5. And the threat of Knight F4 looks like to be a decisive one. White played Bishop D2 to cover the F4 square. Then White played Queen G6, attacking the bishop on G2. And now it seemed like there's a little bit of desperation happening here from White's point of view.
Yeah.
We see the game being played on our screens, and looks like it's almost in its decisive moment. But White tried Knight G5 with the idea, which actually did happen, that once the knight gets captured, that the H file would be opened. So Black took on G2, White had to recapture. The piece was taken and recaptured on G5. And now you can see that, of course, there's a pin on the knight on H5, and White is threatening to move the E pawn forward and to recapture. So Black played King G7, removing the king from the pin. And now White played a slightly unusual looking move, Queen A4. And I believe the idea is to simply try to take advantage, to try to bring the queen across to the king's side in a sort of geometric way, to bring it across to G4. But to be honest, I don't think it really does match. And from where I see, it looks to be a safe piece. Because the black king is not in any real danger on G7.
No.
Mamedaro looks like he's...
What has happened? Let's... maybe he took an E2 or... Yeah, and Queen D7 check.
So we had King G7, Queen A4, Rook takes E2, Queen D7 check. And Queen F7 was played. Again, black is a piece up, so he does not mind sopping off.
Yeah.
And I think that...
D2 is hanging, so...
Yes, I think that maybe the hand will come across the table if we just view the monitor, the screen. We can see here that the Harper Center, and we can see Mamedaro basically looking a little bit, shall we say, impatient for the result, looking forward, going back to his hotel room. He sort of looks like he's put on his breakfast clothes. I think this is soon to be resignable, and I think we might have our first guest of the day, who also had a decisive result in his favour, and we were looking at his game, Grandmaster Gwaine Jones from England. So I think we'll take just a 1 minute break so we can slot him in here into the interview desk.
Yeah.
So we'll see you in 1 minute with Grandmaster Gwaine Jones from England showing his game. So we're back here on the 31st edition of the Reykjavik Open with Grandmaster Gwaine Jones from England, who is a frequent visitor to the shores of Iceland. Yeah. So how many times have you been to Iceland, Gwaine?
Well, I need to check. I think this is probably my 7th Reykjavik Open.
Okay, and you've come here for other events as well?
Yeah, I play the league here as well, and I played the European teams.
So. And in general, do you like coming here?
Yeah, I love it here.
Yes, so why?
Well, I like all the kind of small capital city vibe. I like all of those. And this is just a very social tournament. Playing in Harper is a fantastic place to play. We've even had nice weather this year.
Oh, you think this is nice weather this year?
This is fantastic weather for Iceland. The sun is out.
I should say these are the views of an Englishman, not necessarily of an Australian, you see. I see that...
You don't come here for Australian weather.
No. And of course, Gwen has reached 2 out of 2. And he played, an attractive finish to his game at least, and some interesting moves. Yeah. Maybe we're going to just ask Gwen just to play through the game for us.
I can play through it quickly.
So you can just play through the moves here, if you wish. Yeah. Just as easy.
So I was playing this
sort of
Swedish opponent who I've noticed in recent years has always played the King's Indian attack against.
So you actually had a choice of setups, basically.
Yeah, and choice of second moves. But he's had this position, or normal developing moves. I don't know quite often. This position was at least 10 times in the database.
Okay. So you knew you'd get here.
Yeah, I was expecting this position. So I was having a look last night.
And you like this sort of, what are you going to call it, the Vinnick pawn structure in the centre?
So it's just like white's playing as black, really, with this King's Indian structure. It's probably equal, but I like having a bit more space.
Yes, and it's an easy position for black to play in many ways. You get all the natural pieces in,
Yeah, from morning round, this is quite...
Yes, we were talking about the famous morning round, and you don't have to calculate too much, and all your pieces come out to natural squares.
And he started thinking around here, which was a bit strange when he's had it before.
Obviously, he might have thought that you prepared it, because I assume you were just mixing the moves out.
All my time. I've not used any time to get to this stage. This is all normal. I'm not sure whether...
A6 is a normal idea, I assume? Just
to just to stop any b5 ideas, and I want to play b5 myself at some point. But I'm not really sure what white is supposed to do at this point.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to play f4, and he can't really get d4 in. So
f4 doesn't really go with playing b4 already.
So there's no obvious sort of breaks in the centre,
Yeah, d4 is what he wants to play, but I'm controlling it comfortably. So he played rook b1, b6. He can't win my pawn on b7 because d3 is hanging. And then I can't remember exactly where my preparation finished, somewhere around here.
Yeah, the silly thing is we actually came to your position around here.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's a quiet Spanish, but somehow the bishop ended up on g2. You see.
Yeah, it's a Spanish structure.
And but I thought, but something's gone wrong for white, because there's no easy break in the centre, because usually white can play d4 in this position.
Yeah, well, I've gained a lot of time on a normal Spanish.
Well, it looks like you've had like a Breyer on steroids somehow, and...
I've not had to run around with my knight.
Yeah.
Or with my bishop. I've got all on g7.
So I think, it sounds, I don't know, but it looks like black is already, better.
Yeah, I think black's a bit better already here. I've got ideas of playing a5 and opening him up over there, or d5 or f5.
Yes,
so I've got 3 breaks, and
he doesn't seem to have
break is probably only d4.
Yes, we have on board 1 the resignation by the player, and Mabedov just showing how basically where he went wrong. They're asked to put the kings in the center, so that way they do not disturb the GGTs. But we can see here a decisive result for the number 1 seed Grandmaster Shak Mamedov from Azerbaijan, who played a very attractive attacking game with black to gain a decisive victory. We'll go back now to Glenn.
Okay. So I was wondering here whether he should try d4. So I think he can regain the pawn with something like take, cd, knight b3. At least I can take on b3 and be a pawn up, but then I'm giving away my light squares.
Yeah.
So I was looking at something like bishop c4, rook e1, d3, and followed by some knight e5. And maybe there's some way to equalise here as white, but it doesn't look very attractive.
No. And again, you as white, this is not the best you want. But again, it looks like one of these Spanish positions where black's got more than he's supposed to.
Yeah. So okay, so he went rook b1, and I went queen b6 to stop. To stop d4. And he went knight b3, which was very provocative. I was expecting him to drop the knight back to f1. When I think I was just going to play rook a d8 and
Yeah, and you can still build up for a few moves, but at least, okay, with knight and f1, he may maybe at least be able to play knight e3 and then try to generate something.
I'm not really sure what knight b3 is doing. I guess he's threatening d4. I wasn't convinced, but still, I was provoked into grabbing lots of space with c4.
And also, now the bishop on b2 looks a bit sad.
Yeah, it's a terrible bishop. This is forced, and f5. So I think this forced me to take on e4, but we get this kind of by force. So he's got one good piece, the knight on c5, but the bishop on b2 is terrible. I've got a huge centre.
Yes.
It should be very good for me. And here, I think I played a nice move.
No, it's a nice move because he cannot win the pawn, obviously, because e4 would fork.
Yeah, whichever way
whatever he takes on d3.
The rook and knight. So he moved the queen. And I had quite a long think around here because I wanted to play rook f7, just keeping the tension in the centre, and keeping the knight on f3 attacked, so you can't go bishop h3 to activate the bishop. But I wasn't sure about him taking on d3, take c4 to activate this bishop.
Yes, activate the bishop.
And attacking e5. And I was looking at some strange lines like e4, cd5, ef3, bishop h3, followed by bishop going to e6.
Yeah. And at least these pieces are active for the first time in the game, yeah?
I'm probably going to be some material up, but he's activated his pieces. So I wasn't sure about this. And then I saw the idea of sacrificing the exchange.
Yes, I must admit, it's like taking away his only active piece and sacrificing his knight for one of your substandard rooks, as it were.
Well, my bishop on d3 is just going to completely dominate.
Yes, yes.
So I was actually expecting to play knight d7 here, when I was still going to give the exchange. He went here.
I did think this was almost like an interesting puzzle for one of these pub quiz nights of how the bishop got to d3 kind of thing.
Yeah, with a bad bishop, but but with a structure, but quite good on d3.
Yeah, of course, and of course
I could play rook f7 and keep my
exchange,
but I wasn't. He can start getting some counterplay somehow, maybe f3 or bishop h3, and trying to get his pieces out. And I realised that this knight on c5 is as good as my rooks. So knight f5, he has to win that exchange or something else. But now the pawn on d4 is dropping when we're going to have these two connected pass pawns, a huge bishop on d3, and pressure on f2. I think it's just completely lost.
Yes, because then you can take the d4 pawn at leisure, and you've got the bishop, as you said, the pawn supported by the bishops in the centre. Yeah, and then I'll just push my d pawn and c pawn. So he tried to get some tricks. Queen a2. It's a strange looking move, but I realised he just wants to take on d3. And then whichever way I recapture, he can take on d5. And at least he has active pieces for a couple of moves, as it were.
Yeah, but I found a pretty finish. Knight c2. He took. There's nothing else really. He could try taking on g7. But I've got a choice again. I could just play queen takes f2 as in the game and take on e1. It's just winning.
He looks decisive.
I can also take on f2 and take on g7. So I knew this is what his idea was.
His idea was, yeah.
In fact, I think I could just play knight takes e1 here. I think it's just winning material. Because his rook is hanging after take, bishop takes c3. And I think I'm just a piece up. But at least this way he keeps some pieces on the board. So I went for the more forcing, take on f2.
And knight takes. So I guess he's
attacked. If he moves to rook, then I've got queen f1.
Of course, yes.
And mate.
Mate, yes.
It's always a nice mate when you've got a knight on e1.
Yeah.
So he has to take my queen.
And he must capture back.
And now he has to take on e1, I think, Otherwise everything's just hanging, take, stop my rook, and you can't stop my pawn.
Yeah, it's always nice when you can have this position where you can just push the pawns in the centre. And well, okay, you're not even getting to push the pawns in the centre. You only need one of them. You see?
Yeah. It's surprising that pawn did enough by itself. So I wasn't really sure what its plan is in that structure.
Yeah,
so
no,
it's a difficult position for him to play.
It's interesting that straight at the opening, it seemed like Black had the easier play in some ways.
Well, he played a very passive setup.
Yeah.
Doing a bit of work last night paid off.
So, do you still, when you play these, as I put it, double rounds, we've noticed a lot of the top players as Black playing quite aggressive setups to try to basically win quickly.
I guess so.
And we saw it, there were at least 3 or 4 games today in the top players, Marbedara, Paul, who all played incredibly aggressive positions as Black, just to win quickly. But instead of the old-fashioned way of where you just get the slight edge and you grind the weaker player in the end game or something, they all decided they'd win in like under 3 hours and go back to bed for a couple of days. So you did
good idea
basically.
if you're confident with it.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's.
I went for a solid setup, but then
I
got some initiative anyway. No, if you trust yourself, then your opponent also has less time to repair, so you can play some sidelines that they probably won't have looked at in their preparation.
And you have no trouble playing these 2 games a day then? You've played, I guess, all the enormous amount of weekenders you'd have played in England and various other places.
Well, it's a bit riskier playing a double round. The results become more random.
Yes, and nobody wants to have a minor upset in the first few rounds.
Yeah, but it's good to have them as early in the tournament as possible if you have to have
of course.
Because a few years ago, the double round was towards the end of this tournament.
Oh, okay. Yes, very painful.
Much more difficult, yeah.
Yeah, you can imagine having a very long game in the morning and still having to
play some strong GM in the afternoon, and it's important for the standings. Whereas here, at least, if you have an upset around here, you can still get back into the tournament. Plenty of time to go. So,
can you tell us, before you desert us for lunch and finding your compatriot, actually, not your compatriot, I should say, your partner in crime for this tournament, Nils, who you're probably cheering up a little after last night.
Yeah, well, he won quickly today at least.
Oh, he won quickly today at least. Do you have any memories from the last couple of tournaments of Reykjavik that you can share that were pleasant? You can say the last 5, of course.
They all sort of start to blur into
each other. But you've had good tournaments here. I remember watching some of your games.
Yeah, in general, I've gained rating points here. As I normally do when I'm relaxed when I'm playing a tournament.
Yeah. Do you find that just coming back to the same tournament again makes it a bit easier for you if you like the tournament?
Yeah, if I like it, then you feel very comfortable here. Because if you're playing in a new place, it sometimes takes a few days to get used to where everything is, and even get used to where the bathroom is, where you get your coffee, even knowing whether there's good coffee there or you have to go somewhere else.
Well, as we said, at least in Iceland, there's many good coffee shops. I'm sure you already know.
That's always a good advantage.
I think we have to let Gawain now find
4 hours till the next game.
And let him relax a little bit.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Gawain.
Pleasure.
And we'll be back in a couple of minutes with Ingvar to continue the coverage of the second round. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome back to the 31st edition of the Reykjavik Open. We're going to take you directly to the Board 2 game between Dimitri Andrikhan as white, who we saw at the beginning of the game. And remember, this was the position that we had here of the 2 bishops, as it were, the famous technique of the Super-Grandmaster.
And he played Queen E7.
And he played Queen E7. And as we were talking a bit before, that it's a very pleasant position for white to play once the queens came off. And many moves have happened in this game, so we're going to play through them a little bit quickly, because I believe this game is over, but it's still nice to see how Russian technique applies this. The standard how to how to gain that small advantage with the two bishops in show.
Rook h to
c1, which is already interesting because you assume he wants to play a3 and b4 and get his a rook into it.
Ah, we have a Tariq here. Or do we? So if he had taken on c6, well he did take on c6. King b7.
7. And well, okay, it doesn't seem to matter which rook he played to c1 then.
Well, there's rook d2 ideas.
Okay, but here, if rook d2, obviously I cannot take because of the pin, and I play
just king
f3.
Rook
And
d2,
after
rook
d2,
c7.
rook c7, and I'm
will
basically taking an a7, and the other rook will join in the 7th. Not a very pleasant position. So he defends the 7th rank. But this is not the sort of position you want to defend against a 2700 Grandmaster.
No, he's just on a pawn.
Just down a pawn in slight position. So he covers the d2 square.
Bishops of same colors, so
yeah.
If it was opposite colors, you might have some chances. But yeah, let's just see quickly how he converts. At some point we had a rook ending. Rook c
okay, so he wants to somehow damage, get at least an isolated pawn for his trouble.
Yeah, but he doesn't allow it.
Doesn't allow it.
Now he unpins, so something is bound to happen. And exchanges and the rook ending. Bishop takes b6.
Okay, so your standard rook ending where white has a better rook, a better king, and an extra pawn in the bank. And unfortunately, the rook on f6 is pinning the black rook to passivity to defend the f pawn. And we can see here a nice little instructional moment where just the white king just strolls in. And obviously, if nothing happens,
then king h6.
And he can take on h7, he can play king g7, take on f7.
Going straight for the buffet.
So already completely lost position. So he just tries a little bit of desperation to try to take something on the queen side. But this is all a bit too easy for the second seed.
Too late, rook f3, protecting the pawn.
And now, to be honest, this is resignable now. But he's on the stage playing a very famous play and he wants to be shown.
And rook e3, simply...
Yes, simply saying, well, I'll just sit here.
Keeping his presence on the third rank. Indirectly protecting the pawn on b3, so... And the buffet is over, so...
And he resigned after king f4. Well, a very nice technical game, a much more normal way for a...
this is kind of the normal way you expect these guys to...
Small advantage, converted without any trouble, but quite impressive in the way that somebody with such good technique can still put away someone 22-61 without raising a sweat.
Yeah.
We should go back to our two higher-rated players who were in trouble this morning, my own countryman Moulton Lai and the Grandmaster Daniel de Verdeny, who was had a huge advantage, I believe.
Hang on a minute. He's down a pawn.
We go back to here, and we left it...
Black played b4 and moved 27.
27?
Yeah.
Which was here. This is where we left it. Oh, actually, we left it here, and black played b4.
Yeah.
No, at least black is playing quite directly. I must admit, this was the player who was in very bad time trouble, I believe. And I was walking around during the break. I noticed that he'd climbed back up to 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, maybe the computers weren't completely... the time wasn't completely accurate.
Oh, no, I mean, he could have obviously gained a little bit on with increment. So a3, trying to push the queen away a little, but...
Queen b5?
Yes, still threatening the typical c3 and a5.
I like this idea of opening up on the queen side with b4. Yes. Now he has the b file to work with. So rook g3.
I think white's just trying for damage control.
Interesting, opening up the diagonal.
For the bishop to land on d5, yeah?
Yeah, and also for the rook to come to e2 and maybe double on
yes, to double on the 7th. Yeah. Oh, that's a very good move to
rook
find when you're short of time. Yeah. Not what the Grandmaster wants to see, to be honest.
So let's see, rook takes c3, rook e2, queen c1. And now he just took an e5. Okay.
So he's not even had to sacrifice anything.
And this also covers c7, so there's no rook c7.
There's no rook c7 attacking f7, so I've got to be honest, it looks an attractive position for white.
Yes.
Okay, he manages to trade off the black's most active rook on the 7th rank.
Yeah, otherwise
Black
it's
would
play
over.
rook d to d2.
And then it'd be over.
Yeah.
So we exchange, but now he collects his treasure, and the white pawns that we said a couple of hours ago were attacking have been disappeared. Oh, and as we can see on our screen, there's been a decisive result in the game of Grandmaster Melkonian from Armenia. Johannesson. And we believe that Melkonian won that game quite decisively.
Yeah. It looked difficult in the opening for black. Had some problems to solve.
Yes.
But in this one, it looks like, okay, if the queen f1, rook d7, that's the position that we have currently.
We still have quite a few moves before the time control, so it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, there are 2 more moves.
Okay. So queen takes g5, as I said. Queen f1.
Rook d7, so a few more moves. Bishop a4, rook c7, bishop b3. Well, trying to bait him into repeating, perhaps, with the time trouble, which would be, I think, a good result for white, given that he's now.
I think that the Grandmaster now would be happy to bail out with the draw.
Yeah.
And again, this is where he can use his greater experience to try to salvage something from the last 3 moves of time trouble, assuming our clocks on our screen tell us that the play with the black pieces only has seconds left, although he's getting 30 seconds per move. Obviously, what you see on your screen is not completely exact, so therefore it's not completely accurate because he would have lost on time by now. But you can see that he's now got back to 41 seconds. Although we don't... Oh,
took an h5.
This...
Are there any issues with rook takes f7?
Yes, so we can see here that Ingvar has pointed out that rook takes f7 with the idea of rook takes, bishop takes e6, trying to cause damage.
There's queen h... Well,
queen h1 would allow to at least capture on f7, capture h1 and bring back the bishop, and at least I've taken I've taken 2 pawns off you for nothing.
Yeah, but I can play bishop f3 and maybe the h pawn starts running quite fast.
Yes. That's true. And then it's a. Let's just have a look at this. So Ingvar suggested a very concrete line. Queen.
Well, queen f3 might be a much better move actually.
Of course. Well then.
Then the rook takes f7 just doesn't work.
Doesn't work. So we cannot suggest this rook takes f7.
In that case,
I would say that
that's a lot of pawns. But bishop takes e6 is that an idea?
With the
with the idea f takes, but
even here,
it looks like a perpetual. Well,
I was going to say I thought it was, but it's not entirely obvious.
Queen f4 check.
Oh, of course, you've got queen h2.
If you interpose, then I take on c7. But there are some...
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's mate.
Yes, because the bishop can come to d5 and cover the a2 square. So what's the best way of doing this? I have to play...
Yeah, but you have to play queen g5 though, so... I mean, if you go back to g7, it's draw, but I don't think black has anything here, so that's probably a draw. So bishop takes e6. Of course, we're not forced to take on e6. So if you wanted to simplify, we can play queen h1 still. But then bishop takes f7 is a possibility.
Okay, so king g7. Threatening to exchange on f1 and take. So in this position we could, if everything comes off, I think this position still favors black though, if he exchanges. Making life a little bit easy for black, to be honest. But something like this where you retreat the bishop, I still think I prefer the 2 passed pawns on the king side.
Yeah,
here.
me too.
So
But bishop takes e6 looks like the only try. Otherwise, you just down 2 pawns.
Let us see what actually happened in the game, because they were in time trouble.
Yeah, he's thinking.
I know he's still thinking. Again, the Grandmaster has 28 minutes, so I think he might as well use it.
It's also a good idea to use the time to stress out stress out your opponent a little bit, because it's easier to play faster. You know,
Yes,
if you play the move immediately. Okay, you make a move, but
let your opponent suffer for 15 minutes in his own time trouble.
Let the pressure build up.
Okay, well, I think De Verdeny will actually stay here for a little while to try to find the best moves.
So let's move on to...
Let's move on to see the other people who were in some trouble.
Do you want to go to Multon, or should we see Movsesian?
Let's just see Movsesian, since we've not seen him for a little while. Yeah. If we can find him, he would be...
He's black.
He was black. And we saw him a long time ago.
Ah, yeah, this position that looked fine for him.
Yes, yes. We left him a long time ago in this position, and we thought that black had achieved an equal position without too much trouble, but a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
So we'll play through the moves a little bit quickly to get to the actual current position.
Knight 5, G6, Bishop G5.
Bishop G5.
So okay, now all the pieces are out, so traditionally
yes, yes.
we try to find some places for your rooks. But
Black removes himself for the pin. Queen comes back to the center.
But no rook moves.
No rook
in the immediate future, looking at the score. So Knight H4.
Knight H4 is a slightly strange move. He wants to go to F5 and D4.
Ah, he probably wants to target the D4 square, which is
which is loose.
Quite weak. Knight A4.
Knight A4 to take away the dangerous bishop.
Yeah, of course he wants to keep the bishop. So Bishop D4.
And leaving the knight a little bit hanging there, as I said, on A4.
Yeah.
Bishop C3.
Yeah,
again.
Interesting moment now. He plays C5. Ah, okay. And after bishop takes D4, he didn't take back immediately. Played Queen C6 first, threatening checkmate. So F3.
Forcing a weakness.
Yeah, forcing a weakness on E3, and now he took on D4.
And taking away the C3 square of the knight on A4. Yeah. So the knight on A4, in fact, has no squares.
So even though he has double pawns, now, the knight is a bit silly on A4, and you created this nice square on E3 for your knight.
Yes, yes, and both knights can in fact head for F5 and head for...
Yeah, so naturally bishop D3 to prevent bishop F5, knight F5.
Queen D7 to again insisting on putting a knight on F5. And he has two of them, so even bishop takes F5 will not stop this. Rook on Fe1, so again, one knight goes to F5, and we continue. Okay, so now we play B3. He has to try to bring his knight back into the game. Black achieves his knight to E3. He has his outpost for his knight. Okay, so you can see that black has a little bit more piece activity, even though he has a damaged pawn structure.
Indirectly defending the pawn, because if you take, we can
do the family fork, as it were, with the two rooks and the knight. Rook AC1, covering the C2 square. Interesting move now. He plays Rook E5. Rook E5. And apart from the obvious doubling of rooks.
Let's take on D4 again, just to show the guys. Before we had a family fork on C2, and we can still play it. Knight C2, a nice tactic.
Ah, of course, yes, because we cannot take on C2 because E1 is on.
Yeah.
So having the rook on E5 still indirectly protects the pawn on D4.
Yeah.
So white decided that he tried to include this knight on A4 in the game by playing C5.
I guess black took. Knight takes. Queen takes.
Queen has to move.
And now knight E4.
And now the white knight at least has entered the game and has chosen his own good central square. Although in the future that white knight is not guaranteed to stay there, because black can still kick it off with the pawn move F5. Black doubles. C6, Queen H4. So we can see that now there's some mischief happening with Rook H5 at some stage to force another weakness on the white pawn structure. Queen F2, offering the exchange. He wishes to keep all the major pieces on.
And now rook e to c1.
c1, and we'll just see if there's any other moves here.
f5.
f5 to kick away white's centralized knight. And somehow white would like to somehow exchange the two knights, but this is not possible. And in fact, the knight doesn't really have an obviously good square, because knight g3 will run into f4 at some stage, not straight away, because it will allow the knight to come back to the good e4 square. If it goes to c5, even though I can put it there, because I've covered the square twice with the two rooks, it somehow looks like there might be something happening here.
Yeah, it's very close to some tactical
yeah,
change.
yeah. There's
there might be even knight c2.
Well, yes, I was thinking there's some knight c2 move where I cannot easily take the knight, but does it actually threaten anything?
Well, I'm covering the d4 pawn, so maybe I'm threatening rook e2.
Mm-hmm.
So if knight d3, I have rook e2.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, rook takes c2, then rook
allows
e1 check.
rook e1 check. And now we're generating the threat of course, rook takes
rook
c5.
takes c5 as well.
So
maybe the knight on c5 is all of a sudden a bit dodgy.
We can see that in fact the white player is also short of time, only having 3 minutes left for his moves.
We see he's an international master, so this is
yes, it's
a veteran player. I mean, he's lost some rating, but you always keep your experience.
Fighter, yes,
I mean, it's not going to be a walkthrough for anybody.
No, it's tough. There's no obvious place to put it. Oh, he's thrown in the intermezzo with rook c7.
The Zwischenzug.
Immediately black plays queen f8. And we still have the same problems. The queen on f8 still covers the c5 square.
Yes.
And
So
again, only 3 minutes left.
Put the knight.
Thing is, I don't really want to put it on g3 still.
At least it covers e2. I mean.
Yes. No. I understand that rook e2 is the
pain. If you put it on d2, then there's maybe even almost 95.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if we quickly look at knight g3, we've been told there are many other exciting games, so we might have to move on from this because he still has 2 minutes to go. But okay, it seems as though black has a very large initiative and a very strong possibility of.
We have to like black here.
We have to like black here. There's no choice. We'd better visit my countryman one more time, who seems to be in trouble.
The upset of the round, perhaps.
We've had some damage happen to the black king position since we last saw. You showed, we got to hear, I believe, last time, where white had achieved everything he could.
We couldn't find a good square for the bishop, so that probably explains b6.
b6, but okay, when you have to make a move like b6, you know that something has gone wrong because all the white pieces are very active.
And queen b1.
Queen b1 I like, actually, yes, because you
cover the rook.
You cover the rook and you threaten h7 at the same time. This is a move that somehow coordinates all of your pieces.
Dual purpose move, we like it.
And you can see now that that the young Moulton decided that he had to jettison the h-pawn in order to at least get some pieces out. We call this damage control, but maybe it's too late.
I'm afraid it might be.
Check.
King h8, queen g6.
Queen g6, so very obvious threats here of...
just taking on d6.
Taking on d6, and then if the knight moves somewhere, there's queen h5.
So he played rook e8. What happens if you play queen h5? Is there some trick here? Tricks and traps? g6? No. That's an illegal move, and also loses if it wasn't illegal.
Okay, well, queen h5 is very much the obvious move, threatening bishop g6. What is the defense?
Is there one? He actually played bishop to c3 in the game, but I don't see any immediate defense against queen h5. Okay, bishop c3 is also very strong though. But okay, I must admit queen h5 is the obvious move. Yeah, maybe there was bishop g4 the only defense, I don't know. But bishop c3, what does black do?
Looks terrible, to be honest, because the queen has to find a reasonable square, and he must cover d6, he must cover g7, and that's not so easy to do.
So you must go to f8.
f8. Now we can consider. This is where you almost assume there's a nice move to finish the game.
Rook f1 maybe? Well, does it do anything?
Well, rook f1, I play queen back to e7.
Yeah.
Not that I have much of a choice anyway.
And then queen h? No, then it's queen e3, stuff like that.
Somehow swapping the rook on e8 seems to give black a few chances. So I don't really want to play rook takes c8 unless I'm forced to. But I also want to keep my bishop on c3, so I don't wish to allow black to gain a little bit of breathing space by rook takes e1, bishop takes e1. To be fair, the ending looks terrible for black anyway. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, if you're scared, you can just go for the ending for white.
So this looks like the upset of the round. It's actually rook f1, queen e7. And just slowly, I mean, this is wonderful position. You have your two long-range bishops, and you actually...
You might even play queen h5 here.
And how to defend such a position?
I'm not sure you can.
The worst thing is I wanted to play queen h6, but allow queen e3 check and at least a little bit of...
Perhaps bishop g4 is the only way to defend here.
So basically the only move to not allow the immediate disaster of bishop g6 discovered check. But even here, after queen takes g4, king takes h7, it's still a very unpleasant position after, say, rook e1.
Yeah.
And there's queen h5 check afterwards as well. And the queen still has to cover g7. This
he actually played rook f1, and there's queen e7. So let's see.
And we don't have the clock times for this, but this looks like a decisive position.
I think we can safely say that white should win here.
Yes, I agree.
So let's move on. The games are becoming...
No, the games are in time trouble, and there's a lot of nice tactics at least happening. The players are waking up, and hopefully so are the commentators. So we're going to visit Alejandro Ramirez.
He's playing against Lenka Patasnikova, who is the Icelandic female board 1.
And we have a very messy position on our board.
We need to figure out what's going on.
And we even have an arrow that just magically appeared.
Yeah. Signaling white's last move, which was queen h3, which does threaten, has ideas of knight e7, or rook takes e5 even.
We can see that both players are in time trouble, very short of time.
2:40 against...
And you can see that they're only on move 25, so they've got 15 minutes to make with around two and a bit minutes for Ramirez. And I must say that Ramirez is a very, very good blitz player.
Yes.
I don't know about...
but he has some...
Yes, he has some issues.
Here. Rook takes c5 is the immediate threat, but... Well, that's a big threat. If you play, let's...
Yes.
So moves.
As I said, the obvious threat pointed at Ingvar, of course, is just to play rook takes c5 with knight e7 check to follow, winning the black queen. So black has to defend this somehow, and he must keep the bishop on this long diagonal to cover the e7 square. Yeah. So if we play in time trouble, you tend to play like the bishop f8 type of move, where you guard your king, you guard the g7 square, and you make sure that e7 is covered.
Yeah, but here you might have direct win even. Rook takes c8. Bishop takes c8, knight e7 check.
And then, of course, he must take, and then the queen on h3 covers.
Bishop f8, and then we have bishop a8. Well, it's made on g2 though, so not so fast.
Not so fast, you see.
Not so fast. So this is actually
so black has his own
direct win for black.
So not so easy. And again, it's not a terrible position, but it's a position that short of time is incredibly hard to calculate all the forcing sequences. Yeah.
So it looks like he did play bishop f8, and this indeed is working out for black if white takes on c8. So she played bishop d4.
Yes, there's no need if you don't really wish to play rook takes c8 unless you have a forcing win, because this would allow the bishop takes c8 and then pinning the knight to the queen on h3. So bishop d4 played. We'll stay with this game for a little bit because both players are in time trial. It's a very exciting position. Okay, so the rook on f2 is basically on pre, so we have to move the rook somewhere.
We're getting news now that Moulton escaped with a draw.
I don't believe that, really.
White repeated moves. A pawn up.
I mean, a part of me is happy because
of course.
He's my countryman and I'm basically he's the reason I am here.
Well, White must have been in time trouble and not a very accomplished blitz player.
I didn't think it was such a hard position to play for White, to be honest. You know, and Michael Doherty is a very experienced player who's been playing all over the world. But to be fair, you know, if you with that position with the two bishops, with all the better minor pieces and material up, that's the reason when you come to Iceland to win such positions.
Yeah.
Okay, so Moulton Lai escapes with the draw. He'll be one happy Australian. But if we concentrate on this game, where now we have Ramirez going under 2 minutes, with still 14 moves to go on the clock.
So
he must move his rook somewhere.
We had an exchange on c1.
We had the exchange of c1.
So now he must
still move the square for the rook. And it's not entirely obvious where to go, because, okay, you can go to e2 or d2. I must admit, I was trying to make also bishop takes e4 maybe work, but it doesn't seem to do anything.
It's probably not working. So
rook e2.
This looks like White might have messed up. I mean, it's hard to cover e4 now. f4 is under attack.
And the problem is that we can never push it because g2 will drop with completely disastrous consequences.
No more tactics on c8. She played, what did she play? Well, actually, he didn't move the rook. He took an f4.
He took an f4?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought this was quite strong, but taking an f4 must be a good move as well.
And queen g3.
And queen g3.
And rook takes g2. Everything is falling apart, it seems. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
And if queen takes f4,
we're looking for the pretty move.
Well, maybe we don't need a pretty move. Just rook e2 might be sufficient. I think rook e2 should work.
Yeah. Again, attacking the.
Yeah, if rook g1.
And if knight g3.
Yeah, you can play knight g3 though.
Knight g3 is not. No, we don't. We don't have to take on g2 straight away.
Well, you took on g2.
Oh, you took on g2. Oh, so we had better work out after queen takes the little winning tactic. Rook g4.
Yeah, it seems.
Rather more.
Slightly more forcing.
Slightly more forcing than the other way. Okay, this looks now terrible because bishop takes e4.
Can I play knight h6 there?
Oh.
Pawn takes, bishop takes f7. And queen takes g4.
And it's with check.
And now I like white.
Well, 1 second, because I have an extra alternative. Oh, no, I don't have an extra alternative. I wanted to play, but I cannot play. So, okay, so this would be a very nice tactic if this worked, actually.
And I'll take on f7. If queen takes h6, queen takes f7.
And queen g8 mate, even more embarrassingly. Oh, knight h6. Ingvar, you've had a lot of coffees in the break.
Yes. So but he played rook e2.
Oh, yes, okay, rook e2, which was the other move suggested. And we were saying that knight g3 seemed to be the only move to cover e4 and g2.
Actually, knight a6 might still work.
Oh,
G takes, bishop takes f7, queen takes, queen
g4 check. Now, can I have to.
You have to play bishop g7, and now I take on e2. Well, then d4 hangs though.
Oh, yes, okay.
Can I start with bishop takes g7? Oh, this bishop takes e4 then.
Okay, so this
quite complicated.
No. And both players down to under a minute.
Yeah, that's not something you want to be working out. So after rook e2, she played rook g1. So the obvious question is if bishop takes e4.
Yes, because obviously if queen moves, then we do have all the typical knight h6 winning now, of course, because it'd be a typical knight h6, knight takes f7.
So bishop takes e4.
So bishop takes e4, or maybe, played. Well, okay, played.
Yeah, she took on e4, but...
oh, okay. Well, this is a bit more clear, unfortunately.
And this looks just losing. Rook takes g6, h takes. And that's all she wrote.
Oh, and of course the knight is protecting... okay, suddenly the white position collapses, unfortunately.
Yeah.
A very exciting game, though, and both players in time trouble.
Yeah, a lot of things to work out.
I know, a terrible move, and you can see that there's still only a move 31 here.
Yeah.
So
but this is game over.
No, but I meant that the fact that there were still nearly 15 moves to make in under a minute is a terribly hard place to be in. We should now have a look at some of the other games which are also in time trouble. We better have a look at our Romanian Grandmaster, Mikhail Marin.
Oh, he already drew.
He already drew. So he drew with
Dale Hassel. I think he's also Canadian. Doesn't seem too interesting,
no,
actually.
I think it's a typical very slow position, but it's still a large upset in the tournament.
Let's go to some...
we better go to...
some ongoing games like Reykjavik, we've been told, has some. He was, okay.
He was white?
No, he's black.
He's black.
Gretterson finished.
Oh no, wait.
There he is.
There he is. Oh, another position where the pieces seem to be flying very quickly.
Yeah, let's go to move 33. We're being told that. To knight f5.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everything's equal. Rook d5.
We've been told that Alexander Ramirez has just won.
Yeah, I mean, it was game over.
So rook d5. Okay, quite interesting because I don't really want to give up the bishop because my king on h1 will certainly be dead by the two raking bishops on b7 and g7.
So he took with the rook.
So he took with the rook, captures back, and now queen e2.
Okay, threatening to take
threatening to take an h5.
Which black covers with
queen g6.
And
also
queen b2 check.
Oh. Okay, you don't really want to play king h7, walking into a bishop. Although in this case the bishop is attacked. But there's no actual threat, yeah? I feel that f6 will still be the move played, unless you can find a forcing line that means that king h7 works. But you think king h7, bishop moves backwards on the long diagonal, and then d4 check happens. So I'm not sure, yeah?
Yeah.
So you can have some position where it looks as though there's trouble, but he can't because they're discovered. I don't have anything concrete straight away, but if I go backwards, I have this, where suddenly it's the other bishop that is deciding the game.
Yeah, this is deciding. Actually,
So
he played f6. And
he did play f6, which I think is the more
and
solid
bishop
move.
b1 was played.
Bishop b1 was played, yes. I think it's the obvious move.
Isn't it just losing after d4?
Oh. Yes, because after e4, f5 is on, and that's just a piece. No, okay, this is a blunder.
I mean, he played d4 already, king h2, and now we just play queen g2, and we have the famous windmill.
Yes.
From Torre Lasker.
We've just checked that Serki Movisian has also won his game. That was clearly winning that we saw before.
Yeah.
So yes, as you notice, we have the famous windmill here. So I think your compatriot will win. So we better check Divinia next, that also had the very messy position.
Yeah, against potentially the upset of the round.
And we saw it.
Queen takes h5, move 37.
And now here...
He didn't find anything, he just played e4.
Okay, so if you remember that the opponent was in desperate time trouble, but we see that both players have now passed move 40.
Yeah, we got some people interested in the game in the chat, and particularly the move 43, Queen c5. So let's go a bit forward. Black is up 2 pawns, should have a winning position. So King a2, Queen c5. Go back 1 move. What happens after Queen c5? He can't put anything on c4 because bishop d5. So it's just a double attack, which
is not so easy to defend.
Hard to deal with. So Queen c5 might have just won immediately.
There's no way to defend because...
Don't seem to be any tricks, so looks like...
No, I mean
Queen f4, we take on c2. Is there anything?
So suggestion was
Queen f4.
Queen f4, protecting the rook but letting go, and then Queen d4. Because if we go to h6, it allows Queen h4 check.
I guess the idea is King f7, rook takes b7.
b7, and then we have picking up the rook on b7.
But still, we're down a lot of pawns. I mean, I can maybe just allow it. King f7, rook takes b7, Queen d5, King somewhere f6, then I take on a4 with check.
Yes.
Completely winning. Queen e4, exchanging queens. Next move. So
next move, yep.
Game, set, match.
So this would be a disaster for the white player. So it seems as though Queen c5 looks very, very strong. Nearly all these combinations have some sort of form of double attack, but here you have it in its purest sense.
Yeah.
And there doesn't seem to be a way to defend against it.
Okay, but instead he played bishop d3. Bishop d5 and bishop b3.
Oh, bishop d5 check, sir.
Queen e1.
Bishop b3, Queen e1.
Which...
Okay, he still has 3 connected pass pawns on the queen side. So obviously the endgame cannot be allowed.
So Queen f4 looks forced. We should mention that Queen takes e1, of course, bishop takes b3 first.
Check, yes, and then sopping off into the lost rook endgame for white is not attractive at all. So he has to keep the queen on. Okay, I think here you can still exchange on b3.
Yeah, why not take on b3 and you can force the queen trade, it seems, after... if king takes, then there's Queen e3.
But
if rook takes, there's Queen e4. And you have to
of
give
course
up.
A4 is on.
You have to give up another pawn to.
No, this looks
to
terrible.
keep the queens on. Queen f4 has happened.
Oh, Queen f4 has happened.
Oh, no, hang on a minute.
Yes, Queen f4.
Yeah.
Queen e4. Queen b8. So we reached the position that you mentioned.
Yeah.
He's had to give up the a4 pawn with check. And
yeah,
it's just 3 pawns, yeah?
Looks like too much.
All we need now is just to cover...
Yeah, just avoid the perpetual and
I would probably still throw in c4 check.
Yeah, sure, why not?
And you still have to blockade with something. Yeah? You can't go to the back rank, obviously, because of rook e1. Oh, this is a terrible position.
Yes.
This is just lost. So I think this could be the major upset of the round, to be honest. This is just...
Yeah, Queen c4, how do you even... If rook b3, if I can get away with rook e3, which I don't think white can check. Well, he has Queen a7 here, of course, so... Okay.
So can you tell us something about your countryman?
Yeah, I mean, he's a younger player. He's around 20. I think he's slightly over 20. And he's played for a long time, but he kind of didn't play a lot for some years. Yeah, he's probably 1994, I'm being told. So he's just over 20. But he's been improving a lot in the last 2 or 3 years. Didn't know a lot of theory for a long time. So I hope he's improving in that department. And if he does, then should be able to improve. But yeah.
Okay, well
I like his chances for sure.
No, I mean, I think this is just a clear win now. Yeah, he has to basically, I think, blunder to not convert this.
He can't lose, really.
Okay, so we have to see if there's any other exciting games still left.
Sarkisian, has he finished?
I'm still playing.
He's still playing. He had this Fiancero.
Oh yes.
King's Indian. He's up a pawn, but we do have.
We can see them on the screen. He's still working hard. Gabriel Sarkisian, of course, long-time member of the very, very successful Armenian team, and worked with Levin Aronian for many years, and a very, very solid player, one of the greatest E4, E5 players in modern chess, who plays it all the time, and very hard man to beat.
He played one knight F3 today.
I meant as black, as in he always plays the black side of the E5 positions, and therefore, if you ever need to know how to play E5 as a black repertoire, following Sarkisian is a good example. But of course today he was white, and we can see in this position
Knight A7, he's going to C6.
C6 and try to push that B pawn through, and
he will attack the E pawn.
The E pawn is also on 3.
Looks well.
It looks.
Doesn't it just look winning for
black? Yes. I was about to say
for white. I mean.
Yes. No. Unfortunately, the pawn on C3 is not really going much further.
Looks quite relaxed talking to his fellow Armenian, Sergei Mosesyan.
No, unfortunately, knight C6 and then just pushing the B pawn looks decisive.
Then you win the C pawn because you push the knight away.
Yes, exactly.
King comes to D3. You can maybe show it. Just.
He's even looked at his watch, thinking, "I have time for lunch." You see. Okay, so I believe this is just a clear win for white.
There's one game on board 24.
No, I need a name because.
Yeah, that one. And they're saying that actually in the transmission, it looks like black might have flagged, but.
Oh yes, they reached move 40, and we're still waiting.
There are no clock times.
There are no clock times, unfortunately. But yes,
we don't have the clock times.
We don't actually know.
No.
Well, if we just look at the position while we wait for some sort of confirmation, we can see that it is black to play on his 40th move. This is while we're waiting, and it does look a little bit, because the time control has passed. But the position itself, without looking at the clocks, is still messy.
I was wondering if he had knight A. No. Yeah, if white can pick up the pawn on B6, he should be okay. But
yes. So yes, unfortunately, we can see here that this game has stopped at move 40. Yeah. So I've got a feeling that maybe the viewers who suggested this in the chat were correct, that maybe something has happened here. We'll come back to it because it's quite possible the game is actually over.
Yeah, we don't have any confirmation.
We don't have confirmation yet. We'll go to the Rambaldi, who was.
So the second in progress from the bottom. Just look at in progress. And
no, yes.
He is with the black pieces.
Yes.
Nicholas Haynes from Canada.
So maybe he came with Michael Doherty.
Doherty and Dale Hassel.
So
a lot of Canadians.
A lot of Canadians who've decided that the weather in Canada is very similar to the weather in Reykjavik, perhaps.
Very interesting how he got this rook between the diamond there.
Oh, that's actually quite interesting. I was wondering about Gwaine Jones's bishop, but this seems harder, you see.
I've never seen that. That might be a first.
Yes, it's actually quite interesting, isn't it? Yes. Now that can be for the pub quiz later. How do you get a rook to d4? We have to assume that the c pawn, was pushed forward and
two squares. Then.
Yes. But the interesting thing is here that the rook is actually trapped. It can't even sacrifice itself for an exchange. Yeah.
Currently, he's threatening the pawn on d3. So.
Yep. We have to somehow protect it. And rook
Bishop
h1
rook h1 is
is a
An
problem,
idea.
yeah? Because I wanted to play the obvious rook d1, but then rook h1 will happen.
And bishop e2, then maybe, well,
Or rook
is
h1.
f3 good? Well, rook h1 as well.
I think. Oh,
Rook-
f3.
rook-
No,
yeah,
but
rook-
rook
rook
h1.
h1
Rook
is
h1.
better. Rook h1 first, yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So not bishop
Well,
e2.
white doesn't have any activity. It looks like black should be able to crash through here.
Well, more importantly, I did not realize that there was no good way to defend this. King e2.
King e2 a way to defend it?
Because if we cannot defend the d3 pawn, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So I think this is the last one. Oh.
Okay, we have resignation by Daniel Dvuni.
Oh, well, there you go. The
Great
upset of the round.
in,
Yes.
in the second round. And we have his old teacher here and in the room celebrating.
Okay, so we
Taught him
assume that in this position, that king e2 is the only good way to defend the d pawn, to not allow rook h1 check. And even here, we're looking for a way for black to somehow enter the white position with the rook on h8. He's covering the h file, but he wants a bit more.
Well, we could play rook takes d3 though, if we...
Oh yes, the queen on
want it.
c1. Somehow I don't want to let that rook on d4 out so easily, but of course, as Ingvar has pointed out, the simple rook takes d1 is possible. To take here, and then suddenly rook h1
Yeah,
is
the-
happening, and queen e1 mate is in fact threatened.
Yeah, the white pieces are too passive, it seems.
And the rook on g2 is just a passenger, and if you have to play rook takes g3, this is also lost. We've been told that your countryman's a bit too shy for the camera today, even though he had such a fantastic victory. I never knew Icelandic people to be shy, to be honest. But still, nice to see some humility there.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, well, this looks terrible.
Yeah.
So rook takes d3 must be a good move then.
Mm-hmm. He played rook d1 actually.
I played rook d1.
Yeah.
Okay, we thought rook d1 would allow rook h1 check, but maybe he can...
Maybe play king e2 then. But
okay, then I just take here, no?
yeah, I have to take with the queen. Well.
No, I thought I had a queen b2 here, but I don't. Okay, this is not so clear. Perhaps we can still fight.
Because
here.
of the rook on d4.
yes, the rook on d4 is it's like the prisoner of Zinn.
How did it get there? Where did it come from? Where is it going? The puzzle of the day, the rook on d4. Yeah, black also has some ideas of...
so rook d1 was played?
Yeah, some rook c8, b5 ideas as well.
Of course, they've reached the time control now. That was rook d1 was white's 41st move, so almost certainly the black player will go for a long think here.
Yeah.
To try to do this. Our producers are asking whether we wish to call it a day for this one round, since we have to come back at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, so we're not actually calling it a day.
No, we're not calling it a day. We're calling it a lunchtime break. But we wish just to go through some of the results very quickly.
Yeah. So the third round will start in about 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see from there, Sargsson is completely winning.
Mm-hmm.
And well, we have results on almost all the boards. Top seeds.
Basically.
Won rather easily.
Yes. Only. No. Actually, on
Mamedyarov against Skuzen, I think he was winning at move 20. He won 20 odd moves.
Mm-hmm.
And Draken had a more positional win against his Brazilian opponent, but very impressive nonetheless. On board 3, Richard Rapport won a very nice game. Very nice miniature in 18 moves.
Yes, this pawn sacrifice on a4.
Yeah,
and
then another one on f4. Very nice thematic play. Sargsson is winning on board 4. Then we had Ivan Cheparinov winning against Anna Maria Kasarian. Well, we had a quick look at that game. Looked like a promising position for black, which he converted. Frant Melkumian won against Dagur Ragnarsson. We only had a brief look at that in the opening. Peter Haugli against Movsesian. We had to look at that. Looked very promising from a session, and he won. Then we had Gwen Jones win against Jan Olof Lind, and he actually came in here.
Showed a very attractive finish to the game, and a very nice way to play for black against the Kinzinning attack for people to go through. And again, you can see that he knew that this position would actually happen for white, so he spent an hour last night choosing which system to play against the Kinzinning attack. And well, he can, as he said, his preparation paid off because he got an incredibly easy position to play for black straight at the opening.
Yeah. And Simon Adestein won against Christian Edvarsson. We had a brief look at that one as well, like the Adestein's possession. Then a slight upset when Michael Marin failed to win with white against Dale Hassel. Sergei Grigorian is still playing against Magnus Wahlbom. And well, from the evaluation, looks like he's at least better. And then we had the upset of the round, Daniel Djurny losing against Leo Johansson. In what looked like a fantastic game by Örn. I mean, he defended nicely and took his chances when they appeared. So no luck involved, just good play, which is always nice, especially against such a strong player and with the black pieces. So very impressive. And then finally we had Hjörvar Gretarsson, who just won after the Bishop B1 blunder that we had a few moments ago. We have some games going on still, and we advise you to go to the official website, reykjavikopen.com, where you can see the remaining games on live boards.
Yes, I believe the top 25 boards are all being transmitted.
Yeah.
And there's still some games still going, just finishing the time control. We, of course, will be back here at 5 o'clock local time for the third round.
In roughly 3 hours.
In roughly 3 hours, where the top seeds will have, of course, the hardest games so far in the tournament, and many of the top players will start playing each other. Not the top, but they'll be playing titled players this afternoon.
At least an IM. We might get some GMs playing each other, but I think we will have some IMs playing on top seeds for the third round. So progressively difficult and
and more exciting games. And a lot of the games in this morning's round, in fact, became very exciting towards the top control as well. So I think we will let everybody go for lunch wherever you are, and please, we'll see you again at 5 o'clock local time.
3 hours. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Skin.